call this meeting of the Conservation Commission to order. First order of business, roll call. I'm Bob Pisa, I'm the chairman. Rich Bursch? Present. Jack Rabbit? Present. Jeff Viviano? Present. Matt Moore is our agent, and participating remotely is our associate member, soon to be a full member, Mike LaRouche. And I here, thank you, Mike, and I believe that's it for members. Tonight's meeting is sort of an experiment. It's our first hybrid meeting where we're going to have some people participating remotely and some people participating in person. So I hope it all goes well, and if it doesn't, I apologize in advance, because I have no idea how this is going to work. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being audio-video recorded. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. We'll start out with public comment. Does anyone have any public comment, either in the room or remotely? We're going to take in the room first. Go ahead. Can you come up to the microphone? Give your name and address.
Hi there. I'm Kathy Polson. I live on 443 Burridge Street in Lunenburg, and I'm here because a friend of mine and myself have been picking up litter on a few of the roads in Lunenburg. And one of them I'm concerned about. There's a defective manhole cover on the corner of Route 70 and Leominster Road, and it's overflowing. I don't know if anyone's aware of that. Well, anyway, the water is flowing down into the wetland. There's a drain, and there isn't any screen that will prevent the litter from going down. And I wonder if a screen or a drain could be put there to prevent the litter from going into the wetland and affecting the wildlife.
We could possibly refer that to the DPW.
I did actually talk to the DPW, and they know the structure that Mrs. Polson is referring to. They're telling me they can't put any type of screening up without causing a flooding situation. That essentially it's a direct drop basin.
It's just that the litter is going right into the wetland, and I'm sure that the wildlife is being affected by it. And it's not a lot of litter all at once, so I didn't think it would flood the road if there was something to prevent it, because I don't know when this manhole is going to be fixed. Has anyone seen that? No?
No.
No, it's...
Chairman, might we suggest some sort of a plunge pool?
Joe? I don't know if this microphone's working at the podium, and when we use our microphones, do we have to take and push the button?
You don't have to push the button unless you're muted.
Okay. Because I didn't hear Jack on the
Just
microphone.
turn it on. I'm catching on
Okay,
too, Bob.
all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jack. I apologize both of you for the interruption.
Yeah, we're learning here.
That's quite all right.
I know in some of the other communities, and on some of the lakes, they'll actually put a plunge pool in right after the outflow, and essentially then they basically boundary it up so some plastics can't keep continuing. So it seems to me like we should make contact with DPW and talk to them about putting some sort of a plunge pool in there to capture that and keeping it out of the wetland. And that, again, that's a good point. And, yeah.
You're talking about before the structure?
I'm sorry.
You're talking about prior to, you're talking about before the structure.
After the structure.
The outlet to the...
17 hearings we have, Matt, just reviewed this for the next meeting.
I was gonna say the outlet to the structure goes in the wetlands,
We've
but I'll talk
already
to,
started talking with the DPW director.
I'll talk to him about locating a plunge pool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment from people in Zoom? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. We'll go to our first, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask for public comment from members of the board.
We're learning, it's okay. Hey, Mr. Chairman, I know that, I believe at the past meeting, we went out and approved the May 19th minutes. I believe that was the date. And I hadn't had a chance to read it, and I said, I'm going to bail out, I'm going to move myself. But essentially, I did find what I believe might be an error, and it is kind of, it could have a significant impact later on. It was in relationship to the McGurn property, and quote-unquote, JR asked if they intended to subdivide the property, and Butch McGurn answered no. And I believe that there was never really an answer, or he had not said so. Matt, if you could go check that out.
Actually, he did say no.
He did say no.
He said, not at this time. He said, I don't know what a subsequent owner would do. I don't know if maybe my kids are. The whole discussion revolved around the fact that it was approved as an A&R for one lot, and that the whole thing would have to go back to the planning board for another special access permission. So it wasn't just like they could go and just subdivide the lot.
I appreciate that, and with that extra verbiage, that would be helpful, because right now the answer was, and it was a very short sentence, the answer was no. And so I just think that that could be confusing in the future, and I again apologize for not reading it in time for the meeting, but I did go back and try to capture that. So that's been done. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments from members of the board? Any other yes?
Question.
Go ahead.
If I don't have a DEP number for what I'm here for tonight, is it worth me being here? And with my brother having to accuse himself because he's my brother, is there enough members to vote on my item?
Yeah, there's 5 of us present.
You gotta go up to the mic when you speak because it's being recorded.
He's only 4.
Yeah, but
He's not sworn in.
He can't.
He
He can't vote.
No,
Right, are there enough members, and if I don't have a DEP number, am I?
His membership doesn't take effect until July 1st. We went through the town hall to find out for a fact, so.
Well, I guess, no, we won't have a quorum.
We won't have a quorum, and if
Okay.
you don't have a DEP number, we can't approve it anyway, so.
Okay, have you heard anything on that, Matt? Because
Not a word.
I've been sending stuff to them as well.
They're very, very backed up. So I've had a
Okay.
lot of people sending them canceled checks,
Okay.
requests for file numbers. They're just backed up.
Okay. Is it worth me waiting, Bob, where you did the site walk to get any input, or are we ready to discuss it once we?
Sidewalk, but we can't discuss it tonight.
Right.
Because we're not gonna have a quorum.
Okay,
So I think you should enjoy your evening.
thank you, sir.
I was gonna say, Bob.
Everybody here just made my wife very happy.
All right, hold up a second.
Yeah.
You can't vote to continue it because we don't have a quorum. However, you can, as chairman, reschedule it right now, as long as you declare that it's rescheduled to the next meeting on the record.
So I declare that it's rescheduled till the next meeting, which is July 7th.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know I had such power.
Well, that's, you do in the event of something like that, or in the event a meeting gets canceled due to
All
weather.
right. Any other public comments from the board or from the public? First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes from June 2nd. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Is Gary Goldberg here?
I was gonna say, both of our appointments, LSIC and Gary Goldrip, have asked to reschedule.
Oh.
Gary has an issue with his son, and he couldn't make it tonight. He probably will make it to our next meeting in July 7th. LSIC the same.
Thank you.
Apparently Dominic has an issue that came up and he couldn't be here tonight.
Well, then let's move right on to our first public hearing.
And the
Jack?
date, and dates, Mr. Chairman, when we'd be rescheduled to?
July 7th.
July
July
7th.
7th? Okay, thank you, sorry.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination, 90 Wilder Road by the Wilder Beach Association will be held. Work proposed is the addition of a dock. Is someone here for Wilder Road? All right.
Good evening. I just put an application or request to put a portable dock. I don't know if you're familiar with that beach area. And we wanted to put in a 16-foot portable dock, roll in, roll out, just to basically kind of clean things up there and organize a little bit between the jet skis and a couple boats that are there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
Jim Cavioli.
Jim Cavioli. Okay, Jim. Jim, I had a chance to cruise by. Beautiful area. I love the association you guys put together. But I saw that there was already one dock on there.
There's one, the neighbor.
It's the neighbors, so it's not your association?
92, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he has one that goes a little further out than
Yeah,
what we were thinking of.
okay. I just wasn't sure where the boundaries were. And also, is there a dumpster right close to that?
That is drawn on to scale, by the way.
Oh, okay.
dump-
So the actual dimension of the dock and its location is where it's.
Behind a tree or something, right behind the trees, right
Dumpster?
near the water's edge? It's kind of a,
No, there's not a,
No?
there was like a wood shed with some,
is that what that is? Okay.
sort of near there's an easement there between
No,
the
it's right
houses
behind it.
and the beach.
Yeah.
And there was, I don't know if that's what you're looking at, there's no dumpster.
Yeah, I couldn't really make it out. It kind of looked, it looked a little bit like a dumpster, but if there isn't any, that's okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay. And,
This is the current condition of the beach. There's nothing on there other than beach.
yeah,
There is a little shed maybe, I guess if you want to call it.
That's probably it.
yes, that's what it
Is
is.
that what you were thinking of maybe?
Yeah, well, I'm not here.
It's close to the road.
Close to the water, actually. Right behind that tree,
Yeah, that's been there. Well, I've been for 40 years. so-
and it's probably been there, okay.
As long as I know. Yeah, that's a little shed. Some of the people, we keep the chairs there, some of the chairs and whatnot.
And Jim, how many, just 2 boats and a jet ski, or?
There's 2 boats. I mean, the board said there's room for 5 boats on the other side. But right now, there's only 2 boats and probably a couple jet skis. There's a paddle boat that we keep right near that shed.
Yeah.
We kind of designated that area.
Okay. Would there be, I understand the association is a group, there's 4 or 5 homes that all share that beach?
No,
No?
originally that area you were deeded the beach rights by
Yes.
Lozier when he built all those houses. And then they formed an association where if you wanted to join for $100, you could use the beach. If you didn't join, you can't use the beach.
Okay,
So that's how they came up with the association.
so the one dock will do it, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's more to get things off the beach and look a little more presentable.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any
Thank you.
other comments or questions from commissioners? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public, either at home or on, in the room?
Thank you. Just figured if you guys want to look at the hard copy. This is what we're
Is
submitting.
this microphone on?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay.
Hearing no comments, I'm looking, this is an RDA. I'm looking for a.
Make a motion for a negative determination for a 4-foot by 20-foot dock on the corner of the beach. And you said it was a roll-out dock?
Yes.
Yep.
A second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries unanimously. Congratulations, you got it done.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Matt, for your help, and have a good evening.
Good job, thank you.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent at 163 Beale Street by Margaret and Allison Brooks. Works proposed is a septic upgrade. I feel a present. Is that yours? Greg?
Yes.
Ah,
It is.
we have Greg Roy in person in the room.
I was gonna say, it looks like a Jack Maloney plan.
I note the same, thank you. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay, thanks. Greg Roy, Dilson Roy, it's nice to see you all. It is.
Yes,
And
it
I'm
is a
still getting
pleasure.
used to this. So I'll try to do the best I can with it.
For a second, Greg?
Yes.
Again, I'm just getting used to this too. Is there anybody, abutters from the public, that want to view these plans? I have an extra copy you can look at.
Historically speaking, I've made small reduced copies of the color prints for you, and I forgot to do that tonight because it's my first rodeo in 15 months.
Bring them on back up to me when you're done.
Here tonight for a repair septic system on Beale Street, as you read. Very small lot, I think it's .23 acres, I can't read it, but very small, less than a quarter of an acre. It has a septic system that has failed. It's a 3-bedroom house, and as you can see from the plan, if you have it in front of you, and the plan here that I have shown, the property line that I have highlighted in black is the limits of the property. It's actually, the wetlands are actually primarily off-site. All of the site is encompassed by the 100-foot buffer zone. Much of the site is encompassed even with the 50-foot buffer zone. So we have put the system in the most, there's really only one place for the system, which is right behind the house. And as you can see, it's a raised system, so it takes up quite a bit of most of the backyard. So there's no wiggle room that we have there. We've employed the use of a Presby system to reduce the size of it as much as we can. We're asking for an offset to groundwater reduction, local upgrade approval from the Board of Health, which is typically allowed in a repair situation, to try to make it fit in as best as we can to the lot. There'll also be a couple of at least one Title V variance. We are within 50 feet. Title V requires you to be 50 feet away from a wetland to a leaching field. In our closest point, we are 26 feet, so that requires a Title V variance. The Board of Health, I believe, is reviewing this the beginning of next month. So we're at their next meeting, which I think is the beginning of next month, or next week. I can't remember what Chris told me. Chris McKenzie told me. We will also be upgrading and connecting to the municipal water supply. So we'll be taking out the existing well that exists in the front of the property between the house and Beale Street and connecting to the municipal water supply. I think that is the highlights.
So, you don't have health approval yet,
We do not.
and do you have a DEP
There is no
number?
DEP file number. I should have said that. We do
So,
not have that.
And so, are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? We have, 3 of us conducted a site walk there on Saturday, plus the agent.
I did have a couple questions, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Number one, I noticed we've used a new buffer zone, a 25-foot.
I noted the same thing,
Okay.
sir, today, so we can certainly,
Any way we can get an area that's within the 30-foot no disturb zone?
say that again, I'm not
Can
sure.
we get the area that's within the 30-foot?
The proposed disturbance in the 30-foot?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, because it looks like we're grading all the way out to the edge of the property lines with this proposed system.
Yep.
I myself have a bit of an issue with the system 26 feet from the edge of the wetland and asking for a system of groundwater variance of less than 4 feet. What are the soils like in this area?
Let me go to the plan, I can tell you, hold on.
Okay.
Sandy loam, it's a 30-minute perk, so it's a pretty slow perk.
Okay.
So it's not a highly permeable soil.
And how high above native is the system going to be raised? You said it's a raised system?
The top elevation of the system is approximately elevation 103. And on the the lowest line, Presby line, that elevation is about 100 and a half, so a couple, 2.5 to 3 feet.
That above grade, that will be above normal
Yes.
grade?
Yeah, and then you have the breakout fill that sort of chases the grade.
Okay.
Down on the low
So
side. So the worst part is that corner.
All right, so what is groundwater native right now?
Groundwater, we
If you're
had-
3 feet below the proposed system,
Yep.
and you're adding 2.5 feet?
So we had modeling at 36 inches, so
Okay.
3 feet below grade. Yep.
Okay.
Test holes were dug here and there. So we'd be setting the bottom of the sand for the Presby roughly at existing grade, and then we'd be building up from there. So the Presby cross-section is 2 feet, you have 6 inches of sand, 1 foot of pipe, 6 inches of sand, and then you have cover, so that's about 2.5 feet. Yeah.
Okay. And the breakout design is typical? Where you
Correct.
have such a non-permeable soil underneath, you won't have breakout?
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
we're not asking for any relief in breakout grading. So we have our required breakout fill, 15 feet measured from the, I can never remember with Presby, I think it's measured from the elevation of the bottom of the pipe. We have to have 15 feet level.
Can you guys explain to me what you talk about when you talk about breakout grade?
I can do that. So from laterally from the system, if you can kind of picture yourself looking at a cross-section of the septic system, and you have, in this case, we have a bunch of tubes that are going to be in the ground, excuse me. You have to go out 15 feet laterally in all directions before you can grade down. And that's called the breakout fill. And that's just to ensure that over the life of the system, you don't have breakout of the effluent from the system. That's Title V.
So just the concern I had, Bob, is basically they're putting this system on top of a non-permeable area, well, permeable to a point. So you're gonna have all the affluent pumped up to this system that can't go down or is gonna have a hard time going down. Do we have enough to hold it in sideways?
breaking
Yeah.
up. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this, in my estimation, and I'm not an engineer, but this is the minimum system at a less than minimum distance. So,
It's
had
a
they
system-
reviewed a tight tank?
Well, I think it's a good question. So Title V, if you can fit a system in there, you have to build a system. That's sort of the way Title V works. So we're in one of those situations where we have a system shown here. I mean, we'll see what the Board of Health has to say on this in a week or two. But typically, you're really only looking, on tight tanks, you're looking at really small lots, or you're looking at places where you do not have enough naturally occurring material, like you have a high ledge situation or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I know this might not satisfy you, but we've put them on smaller lots, so I mean, I don't think that this would rise to a tight tank level.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions from commissioners? Any questions from members of the public, either via Zoom or in the room? You got to come up.
You gotta come up to the mic.
Mike, and give your name and address and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Bill Grock, and I'm the abutter for 141 Beale Street.
Thank you.
One question I had, Greg. Now, is the elevation of land going to change? I know probably on their property, but is it going to be any change going over to my property?
No, there would be, all of the proposed grade changes would be contained on this property,
On that
on our property, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's pretty much my question. All right.
Thanks,
very much.
appreciate you coming.
So, Rich, is there anything you want him to address before the next meeting?
I would like to see them put in a 30-foot no
Yep.
disturbance zone and give us a breakdown of the amount of disturbance in the no disturbance zone. And
And,
there's no way to put the system in under the driveway.
No, I mean, there really isn't, because you gotta raise, you'd have to raise the, we're in a fill situation, so it's really pretty constrained.
so Greg, did you ask for a waiver for disturbing the no disturb zone?
If you don't have it in your packet, we didn't ask for it, but we'll get it to you.
Okay.
I have your new form.
Okay. So, I'm looking for a motion to continue, till July 7th? You, can we be ready by July 7th, Greg?
Absolutely. I would expect so. I mean, I know, we're at the mercy of DEP with file numbers, but we typically have been getting them by the next meeting, barring an unforeseen.
I'm
So
more
moved.
concerned about the Board of Health, actually. So moved, do we have a second?
Second.
Just
no-
if I could, I mean, are you looking to follow the Board of Health? I mean, is that the position of the board? Do you want to see the Board of
No,
Health?
I'm just,
Curious to see what they'll say.
Yeah,
I'm curious, yeah.
Yeah.
When are you meeting with them?
I'm pretty sure Chris is on the meeting. Can you ask Chris McKenzie? He's on the meeting, I think.
Chris McKenzie, Dillis and Roy. Chris, I'm asking you to unmute yourself.
Hopefully I don't put him on the spot.
Chris?
There we go. I think you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we're scheduled for the Board of Health meeting at 7 o'clock this coming Monday.
Okay, so we'll be in good shape for the 7th.
Excellent, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes. See you on the 7th for this one.
Thank you.
I think you got more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was the date of that meeting?
The 7th.
No,
Oh, no, Monday. What's the date?
Looks like it's.
No, Chris, what's the date of the meeting? Yeah. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I think that the Board of Health is on the 21st.
21st, okay.
Well, we're gonna try it with allowing people to unmute themselves. See how that works. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. In the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination at 39 Cliffview Terrace by Neil Sullivan will be held. Work proposed is replacement of a dock and the removal of 13 hemlock trees. Three of us plus the agent conducted a site visit there on Saturday. I thought I saw Neil on the list of participants.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, there he is. We have his plan on the cloud. Neil, tell us about what you want to do.
Okay, so starting with the trees, I'm kind of infested with the woolly adelgid in the hemlocks on my property, and I've been working with Bartlett Tree Services, Jason, Julian Reese over the years, and we're kind of losing the battle. And he came over this spring. We looked at the trees. These have all been treated. We tried to treat them, and he recommended, many of them are dead. Some of them on the front are dangerously dead, pointing towards the Normandin's house. And the others are, the ones that still have some life left in them are not going to make it, according to the arborist. So he recommended those 13 trees be removed. And that's what my petition is.
And tell us about the dock, Neil.
Yep, so the dock, I had a dock, I think it was, I built one and put it in 1995, approved by this board. And when I took it out last year, I came to the conclusion that it needed to be scrapped. It had gave good 20 years of service or so. And so I disposed of it, and what I want to do is, that dock was pressure treated wood frame with the plastic wood surface. And what I want to do is replace that with a dock of similar square footage that is a floating dock from a company up in Hudson, New Hampshire, who's put a number of docks onto Hickory Hills Lake.
FWM?
So this would be, Sorry?
FWM dock?
Yes, that's right. So this would be, it would be less intrusive, and from my waterfront, you can see that it's all wooded, and this gives us access to the lake for swimming, and such, and, you know, grandchildren can come over and use that. So that's just to replace that access for us.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Jack Rabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Neil, when we went down and we looked, and there were 3 hemlocks right down by the water, and if you're standing at your house looking to the left-hand side, we didn't see any indulgent, but if there's a tree
Right
guy...
now, then I keep us so that I can do it in the morning.
I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Okay. So,
No, I,
hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so we looked at it, and we didn't spot any, but we're not gonna, I wouldn't, if you've had a tree guy come in to look at it and you've been treating it and you're fighting it, I won't question that. But it does bring up another good question. As part of our review, sometimes we just put a question out there, and Bob, you said, what are we thinking in terms, we didn't discuss it, what are you thinking in terms of tree replacement? And I didn't really have a quick answer for it, but now that I know I'm losing those trees in the front, I think we should be thinking about some sort of tree replacement, especially along the water's edge, and perhaps partially up your slope. When you take them down, are you leaving the roots?
Yeah. So I have Flag taking him down. He's contracted with me.
Okay.
And it's just going to be, cut it low, but leave the flat stump in the roots.
Yeah. So
if I may, if I recall correctly, the trees that we noted were all dead.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that are noted, but there were 2 right down by the water. One? Was it one?
It was one.
One.
And I had a concern about whether or not that needed to even be removed, and that was
Right.
the only one I had the concern about. So, do you know the one we're talking about, Neil? It's the one, if you're looking at your lot from the...
Yeah, it's right near the Normandin's line.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's like mated with a beech tree maybe, or some other kind of tree.
Yeah,
It's made with a black birch.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's in photo number 4 on your presentation here. These are the 2 trees you're talking about, right, Jack? There's a hemlock, and I
didn't
can't tell
know.
what the other species is, but those were the 2 that I questioned.
So that's the area we're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
right, that is the area. Thank you, Matt. And so the question is, okay, now I'm losing even more, now I'm losing along the water line, and I'd be interested in some sort of a replacement, because we've kind of done a job on the canopy, but it's hard to tell and you're absolutely correct, there's a few dead ones that represent a safety hazard almost, but I think we need to be thinking about some sort of replacement schedule. Maybe it's certainly something different, perhaps oaks or something, or...
Well, I mean, I'd look at a replacement schedule from the point of the regulations call for it within the 30 foot. As far as the canopy goes, there are so many trees that are left there. There's no impact on the canopy whatsoever. However, our regulations do call for it within the 30 foot.
And the hemlock, in my observation, my memory was that all the trees were dead or dying, except for the one hemlock that's on the corner right down by the Normandy property, about 5 or 6 feet from the water.
Yep.
Double.
And that's right next to the black birch. And, I second Jack's, remark that if you're gonna take that down, I'd look for signs of indulgent on that. I didn't see any, on any of the branches that are down by the ground. But if you are gonna take that down, I think I'd be looking, for us to follow our tree replacement policy for that one tree. Yeah.
All right, well, what I'll do is I'll leave that one, if that's acceptable.
Yeah. To me it is.
And then we'll just see what happens.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
And there are no other trees within 30 feet, Neil?
No, the rest of them
Okay.
are up past the shed, the shed that's down there,
Yep.
and then all the way up towards the front of the house.
Yeah, and the ones that go between 30 and 50 are like dead,
Yeah.
dead.
Dead, yeah.
Yeah, there's one I'm really worried about that's pointed right at the Norman's house. So,
Yeah.
I really want to get that one down.
Just for reference, Mr. Chair, how far is the boathouse from the edge of wet? This diagram's not to scale, just so we have it on the record.
I did not take a measurement.
Okay. If perhaps we could get, Mr. Sullivan, a measurement from the edge of the water to the boathouse?
Yep,
Just
to
so we
the
have-
front face of it, to the water-facing side?
Yep, just so we have some reference to where the trees are in relation to the 30-foot no disturbance zone.
Yep.
Generally, we ask for the 30 and the 50 to be marked, but neither are marked on the plan.
Right, and I think, all the other, really, that was the only one in question could be alive. The rest
Okay.
of them are.
Yeah, and reviewing the pictures, you could see the bark scaling off on
Yeah.
most of them, and it looked like they were pretty well marked. So my three colleagues, I'm sure, didn't have any question when they were out there, so. But I do agree with Bob and Jack that we should have, if it's going to be removed, have any live trees replaced.
Yeah, well, I'll leave that one. I'll do 12 instead.
Thank you.
It's my observation from the site walk that all the other trees, were dead and they had died because they had been outcompeted by the canopy. So I don't think, I'm not concerned about the distance of the other trees, from the water.
Okay.
And I'd hate to see this, hearing continue, just for that measurement, because I don't think it's material. But that's just my personal opinion.
Or we could make it a condition of approval. That way we have it memorialized on the plan.
Agreed.
Okay? Any questions or comments from members of the public at home or on Zoom or in the room? Hearing none, this is an RDA. I'm looking for a motion for a negative determination with a condition.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination with a condition that the applicant provide us with a measurement from the water to the corners of the boathouse.
Second?
Second.
We also need a condition that they're only going to take down 12 trees.
And they're only gonna take down the 12 dead trees.
The 12 dead trees. Does the seconder accept that amendment?
I do.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, thanks. And to satisfy the measurement condition, can I send an email in to Matt with the distance?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, actually, take your measurement, take that sketch, and draw it on the sketch.
Okay.
So that we have it memorialized on the sketch.
And then sign it and date it and send it in.
Okay, will do. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a requested determination for Brookview Terrace by John LeBlanc will be held. Work proposed is the addition of sand to a beach. Is there someone here? I see a Caitlin LeBlanc. Aha. I'm gonna ask her to unmute.
Hi.
Hi, all right. And, so are you representing yourself, Caitlin, or do I have to unmute anybody else?
Yeah, my husband's in the other room, but we have a baby that we're trying to keep quiet too, so.
Okay. Tell us about what you're doing there, Caitlin.
We added sand down by the water to replace the sand we already had. And someone said we were supposed to pull a permit for it, which we didn't realize, so we sent that paperwork in once we found that out.
So to give the commission a little background, as soon as I'm finished typing this. It's hard to take minutes and do this, but if you recall, we allowed a negative determination for some tree removal on site. That was when Commissioner Rabbit had noted that the stumps that we required to be put, left in and ground, some of them were being pulled out. So I knew who the contractor was, notified him. He basically cleaned up the area he had been working in, and the rest of the stumps that we allowed to be removed, or we were allowed for the trees to be removed, were ground. They were ground flush to the bottom, and then he stabilized the remaining area with loam and seed. But in the process, the LeBlancs added beach sand to their existing beach. And comparing it with what I saw on site, there's been no expansion of the beach. But we had them file this separate RDA for the beach because that wasn't included on our prior approval.
Now, originally, Matt, we had approved a septic system installation on that property?
We did install a septic.
Yeah, but it was a septic, but there were trees that needed to be removed.
Yeah. I guess my...
Because I remember we went down, we looked at where
Yeah.
everything was going, and we allowed the trees. That's been done. The area's been loomed and stabilized by my orders to the contractor. He loomed, you guys saw it, he
Yeah.
loomed and seeded the area, it was very well done. But the added beach sand was not part of the approved scope. So what I did was I asked them to file a new
Okay.
RDA to memorialize the beach sand addition.
Okay.
And reviewed it with the homeowner that's required in and of itself to be filed. So.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, do we have a record of how much sand was added?
I didn't look for the sand volume, I just looked at the dimension to make sure it did not exceed the limits of the old beach.
Okay.
And we did a site visit, but to be honest with you, we didn't walk down and look at it because we would have been walking over the newly seeded lawn.
Okay. Do you know roughly how much sand you added, Ms. LeBlanc?
10 yards.
10 yards?
Yep.
All right.
That would be about right.
And this is a one-time action? We're not looking to do this again?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we should just add for posterity that they added 10 yards to the beach.
When I do the RDA form,
So you make it right to the
Rich?
water line.
Yeah. Yes, Matt?
when I do the RDA form, where it has scope of work that we've approved, I'll note the 10 yards on the form there.
Okay. And is there any way that we can get a diagram of where the beach is? I didn't happen to see it in the application.
There are some pictures as well.
I thought we sent it up like a hand sketch.
Yeah, it's just not on our cloud here.
I think I sent it over to Matt,
Okay.
but, yeah, the other question I have is that, are we asking for any barrier to keep that from working its way?
Jack, can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, the question to my other, Chairman and the other members, would we be asking for a barrier to keep that sand in with the rest of the sand, or will it essentially erode back into the lake? The pictures of, excuse me. Okay, here we go. That's not it.
No, I just see the old sketches, I don't see anyone.
No, we
Yeah.
Okay.
diagram.
Yep. Yeah, where this is posterity, it's not really it's already happened.
Right.
But we definitely want to document what is there for a beach.
Saturday.
Yeah.
10 yards is a pretty good amount to
Pretty
be
good, but
adding.
it was a good ad, but at the same time, it was a good, over a good distance too, so. Could we ask to have some sort of a barrier, something to stop that sand from moving into it?
I wasn't on site, I'm not sure how you would do it.
I don't know.
I don't think it's really,
I know.
they've got so much grass and so much lawn to stop flows. I just don't think erosion's gonna be a real issue.
Yeah, what I'm seeing around the lake, when folks are putting it in, they're taking the old trees and poles and essentially running them along there so the kids can jump over and not cause any trouble, but at the same time, it keeps that sand from working its way into the lake. And I just noted that all of a sudden, a lot of people are capitalizing on all the old logs that are floating around.
Yeah, no,
You're okay with it?
I'm seeing what you showed us, yeah. I mean, it looks fairly flat. I don't think you're gonna have an erosion issue.
Okay.
I personally am not a big fan of adding sand to an existing beach. I think you should be going in and trying to drag what you can out when you're cleaning the area
Yeah.
to keep it from going down, because it does slowly kill off the plant
I
material.
think we should be encouraging that.
Definitely. But in this case, it's already been done, so that's why I want to have it, make sure we have it memorialized, so we know what's there in the future.
So.
Again, that's my position.
And so, would you want to see the diagram before we vote, or are you happy, are you willing to do a contingent approval?
Typically, I would ask for a continuance to make sure that we have everything in place, where it's not holding up their project.
And hopefully the grass is growing well.
So, with that, I'm looking for a motion for a continuance.
So
I
move.
think we sent the email, we sent the diagram pictures to Matt on,
I printed off everything you have, there wasn't a diagram in my email. I have your file in front of me here, I have the prior diagrams. I don't see one that shows the actual beach. It's really, your project is done, so this isn't gonna hold you up, so we just do a new sketch, submit it to the file, and then the next meeting, when they see that sketch, they'll just simply complete the approval. That's about it.
okay. All right. It was supposedly sent on May 30th at 4:30, but that's fine, we can just do it then.
I think we had a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second, roll call, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, that was continued to the date certain of July 7th.
This last one? No. We took the green. There's nothing there like that.
So, please get your sketch in with measurements. You get that in, you should have no trouble on July 7th.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. In the town of Lunenburg Wetlands, the municipal bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent at 250 Howard Street by Joel Normandin will be held. Work proposed is for multiple crossings of a wetland to accommodate an access driveway. And the Greg Roy show continues. Three of the present members of the commission went out there, as well as one of our newly appointed members, Adams, so, plus the agent, and walked this and picked up a few ticks in the process.
I understand they're pretty thick this year, talking with the surveyors, but anyway. Greg Roy with Dilson Roy, thank you for your time this evening. I'll take a little longer than normal to explain this one, if you don't mind, but I'll try to be as brief as I can because I know you have a long meeting. But, so I just wanted to start with a brief history. It was quite some time ago now that when the town had a first right of refusal on this property, and the Open Space Committee had expressed interest, and I'm going to summarize this at a very high level. The Open Space Committee had expressed interest because it had the property had met several of the open space criteria for pieces of property that were that are in that criteria, first right of refusal. The applicant went through negotiations, I guess I'll call it, but worked with the town to subdivide the property, and as a result, has ended up deeding the portion of the property that was the most significant from a open space standpoint to the town, which is shown in this plan right here in green. The balance of the property then, which is right in here, was to be preserved for the development of a single-family house lot. So we've actually included the agreement in your packet that memorialized that whole discussion, just for your reference. But that's why we're here today, to discuss the proposed access into the property. So I'm going to turn the page here. Bear with me. Start with the existing conditions. So the property has frontage on Howard Street, which is shown down here in charcoal, and then extends back. It doesn't fit on the site, so we have a match line here, and then you pick up again right here, and you extend into the back portion of the site. I can't go off the page. Chuck Karen delineated the wetlands for the applicant, and those are shown on this plan in green. So we have several wetland areas on the site. Several wetland areas on the site that are denoted by the wetland flags that are indicated on your plan. The other thing to say from an existing condition standpoint is that the site has been soil tested for the purposes of constructing a septic system for the property. Wasn't our office, but the applicant explored this area for the suitability of soils, and were not able to find suitable soils in that area for the construction of a septic system. So the passing perks and suitable soil testing that we have on the lot is indeed back in the back portion of the lot before you get to the part that was deeded to the town as open space. Frontage again is on Howard Street, and the buildable area is in the back of the property. So that necessitates the construction, to access that part of the property, that of course necessitates the construction of a driveway with several wetland crossings. So I'm going to, again, bear with me, I'm going to change my plan. So we, in working with the applicant to locate the most, I guess I'll call it efficient from a wetlands impact standpoint, so the least impact to wetlands, we located the driveway crossing as shown in charcoal or black right here. And our sort of method to our madness here was to utilize the sections across the wetlands in locations where we would have the least impact. So you have a very small wetland, small relative to the width in this location, in this location. In this portion of the site, again, you can kind of see there's a section of the wetland that narrows. So we've crossed in that narrowest point. Similarly, in this location, and hug the property line in this area again to try to take advantage of some of the upland pockets, so we're not doing a more extensive wetland fill for the driveway crossing.
Greg?
Yep.
I also just want to note for the other commissioners that the part of the agreement with the town was that the driveway, and I'm sure you're going to get that in a second, but I think you ought to mention that at this point.
Go ahead, I'll follow your lead.
Because that the driveway stay on the westerly side of the property to the maximum extent possible.
Right, so
it will be away from the conservation lands.
So I think you mean easterly, you mean on this side?
Yeah.
Yeah, easterly.
Easterly.
Side. Yeah, I think it's easterly.
What he said.
But no, yeah, right. So this whole side here is conservation land. So it abuts conservation land, and I'm probably preaching to the choir on this. I understand. I understand you guys are more intimately aware of this than me. But so anyway, that's the method to our madness. So it results in the crossing of wetlands in 8 locations, and the combined wetlands impact on those crossings is 48. I'm rounding, but just under 5,000 square feet. 48. Just under 49,000 square feet of wetland alteration.
You mean 4,900?
4,900, not 1,000, thank you. Thank you. It's getting late. 4,900 square feet. And I'll get to our proposed wetland replication in a minute. But the drainage pattern here was important. So drainage pattern generally flows from west to east, or northwest to southeast across the site. And because the wetlands are located the way they are, it necessitated the design of several culverts. So this is not a situation where we could just, even in location of one wetland crossing, it wasn't enough just to look at one culvert that would fit, that would manage the flows, because we're interested in preserving hydrology across the wetlands. So we're interested in making sure that down gradient areas, we would not have a channelized flow condition as the flow came through the culvert. So you're going to see from our design in several areas that we have, like in this spot right here, we have several culverts spread out across the proposed wetland crossing, and it's to maintain hydrology, wetland hydrology, on the downstream side, and not negatively impact the downstream areas. Same thing up in this area where we have several culverts stretched out across that more broader area of wetlands. We looked at tributary to each of these culverts. We looked at the upstream watershed areas, and we sized those culverts to convey the flow. So we're not going to have a situation where we're impounding water on the upstream side, which is going to negatively impact, again, our goal is not to negatively impact, well, we're obligated to not negatively impact down gradient wetland areas. So that was a big component of the design. So the project results in 4,900 square feet of wetland alteration, and we're proposing a 1.5 multiple on wetland restoration. That is to say, we're proposing to replicate in excess of 7,000 square feet of area. So the areas that I'm showing here in reddish hatch are our proposed wetland replication areas. We have 5 of them throughout the site. Our intention there, there's a bunch of different factors that influence the locations. One was just the sections on site that we thought had the best chance of being a successful replication area. So we have areas where we feel that with minimal amounts of grading, we will be able to replicate a wetland hydraulic condition. So we have 5 areas identified. It's also areas where we've also stretched those areas out across the site so that we have a broad area of wetland fill that we're proposing, so we're not proposing to take all of that area and replicate it in one small location, where we thought that it was better to spread those areas out into more of a decentralized approach, so that we replicate more closely what was lost. So we're trying to do that. It's the intention in the replication areas to save the large overstory trees. So we would be just grading around the trees. We'd be saving the overstory canopy and just modifying grades we'll have to modify the soil, modify the grades so that we can get the hydraulic conditions to match what they are in the wetland areas. And then, of course, those areas would be seeded and planted, which we have a list of plantings, wetland plants proposed. There would be monitoring required. So the Massachusetts Wetland Replication Policy and Guidance stipulates how that is done. Typically, it's 2 growing seasons where we would be monitoring and reporting to your commission what the success rate of plants are that we have planted. So we would have to make a report to you on an annual basis documenting how much of the plants have survived, what level of basically documenting to your commission that the replication areas have been successful. What else? I think that's it. Again, I don't want to monopolize the whole time. I am certain that you will have questions. And I'll also just say that I know that we do not have a DEP file number for this one either. So, but we're certainly interested in hearing comments, questions from you folks, which I'm certain on.
Comments or questions from commissioners? Jack Rabbit.
Okay, nice presentation, great workup, per usual. You guys are good. Tell me about the driveway. I know that you haven't shown the cross-section, but your drive is going to be 12 foot wide, and you're essentially going to build it up, and you're going to have walls that are holding these walls up for the whole driveway through numerous wetland areas, right? And so now you're getting past that 30, you're putting structures within the 30 feet. When we were out there walking, it was quite an experience in terms of whether it was slogging or walking.
Yeah.
And the driveway, in my mind, wasn't, well, we're generally walked where they thought it was going to be, wasn't really well delineated. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of trees along the way, and it struck me that how many are we going to lose for that one house in that location? And then we came back and said, why are we putting it so far back? Why could we find some areas where you did some septic test holes, and it seems like the driveway was running along the higher points of the piece, but are there any other locations that you could use that were closer? And how many, tell us about the test holes, tell us what you found. And by the way, it's a perfect spot in the back. If you're building a house, I have no objections to that, but I'm worried about the driveway and how many trees am I gonna lose to get there? And then for that matter, what about this wall you're building? And are those little turtles and things like that gonna be able to get over it and get around them? And how is this gonna perk? Because it's not. How is that gonna flow? So, I mean, to me, that looks like it's a project worthy of, let's take another walk and let's get the place delineated, and let's get a tree count in terms of how many. We're not going to lose any for the house, but getting there is a lot, and that does impact that narrower area. So I think you're off to a good start, but I think there's a lot of questions we need to really work on. The other question is, this is the Mulpus watershed area, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and
upper reaches, yep.
Yeah, how is that elevated driveway going to affect that? And I know you're going to mush it around, but I just don't know. And I'm certainly not an expert in watersheds and its impact, but I know that is a particularly sensitive area with regard to the Mulpus altogether.
I believe it's an ACEC up there.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Greg?
That's a great question. I have to check the filing.
I believe it is.
Yeah. I'm gonna look on the assessor's website, see what they have to say about it.
Yes, it is. It's an ACEC.
Yep. It's marked.
So, yeah, Mulpus is behind, up here, right, and way off the site, even I think further than what was given to the town. But you're right, it is in the upper reaches of the Mulpus watershed.
So we have to explore all of that.
Yeah, well, and that's, and like I said in my initial, if I could, Mr. Chair, I'll just respond to a few points. I appreciate your comments. I probably won't be able to respond exhaustively this evening, and I think we'll have another crack at it. But that was one of the reasons why we took a decentralized approach to our culvert placement, is to make sure that we're that the final drainage patterns across the driveway will approximate what we had in the pre-existing conditions. So we don't want to, I mean, we could have created a dam. One way to do it is to more or less create a dam through the wetland. So to address another one of your points, we are indeed raising the driveway through the wetland areas, right? And through the wetland areas, in order to keep the minimal cross-section impact area width crossing through those wetland areas, we are proposing short retaining walls on those, on the side of the driveway so we don't have to grade and impact more of the wetland areas. Either way, you'd be creating more or less a dam through there. So one culvert would manage that, right? You could create an impoundment on the upper side of that driveway and you could convey the flows to that, but we didn't find that to be a very responsible way to do it. Because then you'd be impacting, you know, if you can look, especially on this, on this section right here, there's like 3 different, on the upstream side, it's one consolidated wetland area, but on the downstream side, we have one area here, and then we have upland. And we have another wetland area here, and then we have upland. We have another wetland area, and then we have upland. So we made sure that there's, you know, continuity through both of those, all of those corridors, so that we're not going to be in a situation where we don't have any flow, you know, at post-construction, that we're cutting off flow to one of the downstream wetland areas. So that was a big constraint, or that was a big design input on our part. I was going to address something else that you said, and I forget. I think I was just going to respond to the retaining walls and just clarify that we are intending to put retaining walls, but only in the areas where we're crossing wetlands. So the portions of the driveway that would go through upland areas would not have retaining walls in them. So we employed those just to, like I said, minimize the width of the impact that we need through the wetland areas.
Is there a chance we can get them to, could we walk it where it's marked? And
Yeah.
understand really where the driveway was going to be?
Yeah, I mean,
Second line of the drive.
When we were out there, the center of the driveway was marked with white flags all the way up through.
that was my understanding, was that.
They are.
I thought it was well marked.
Is that the center point, Bob, or is that?
It was the center point.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was generally where it was going, and was it just riding the whole ridge? And then the other question is, why weren't we using part of the cart path? But let's go back and explore that.
Well, the cart path is there. You see those, you know.
Yeah, and it goes.
So it doesn't really get us to the, you know, it kind of goes off this way, it crosses the site, you know, so, you know, it doesn't get us to where we need to be ultimately.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, the explanation I heard, it had basically just been carved out, or Bob, he was saying that because people have been using it for so long.
Yeah, it's
Saying,
probably.
well, if it's free of trees and they've been using it forever.
I'd like to call on
Oh,
Jeff
I'm
and then
sorry,
come
Jeff.
back to Jack.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was on the sidewalk as well, and I agree with Bob, it was very well marked. There's white flags, that was the center of the driveway. I believe the first crossing, you're gonna have that block wall system with possibly guardrails on it. So you have one section here, and then there was another wetland area that we kind of crossed on the way out. There's 3 culverts
Yeah.
with another section of that raised. And then this is kind of the major area that we were out in, that's past that cart path, or
Yeah.
prior, yeah.
The biggest wetland system is past the cart path.
So I think we kind of brought up, can we use the cart path? And the answer was no, because you're increasing grade, and then you have to come back down that grade. And that would be up in towards that conservation land, and then you're kind of really restricting yourself as you go further north, I guess. As that driveway continues, you have to come down from that cart path, and it would just be much more difficult using that cart path.
Right in here, you
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to come down through that wetland area and kind of do more damage than good.
Yeah, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty wide.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
On your drawings for the retaining walls on the sides of the driveway, I didn't sense that they were limited to just the wetland, but they
Yeah,
are.
they're just on the wetlands.
Just on the wetland
You
area?
can see the bold lines.
Jack,
sorry.
I'd like to-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff. You have anything else?
No, I think it all made sense to me, and it was very clearly marked, and I can understand, I think that's, you know, using that raised kind of wall system with the guardrails, there's really no other way unless you're gonna do a lot of filling, and I think that's the only real spot that Perk the whole area is wet walking out there essentially. I don't know, and I'm not a
Yeah,
septic guy, but there's no way you're gonna perk any of that land until we got to the end, really, so.
Exactly.
They have to cross it at some point to get to that buildable lot, so.
They
I think
tried.
This
Yeah,
is
they
the
did
least amount of.
As we walked out there
disturbance,
on the sidewalk, repeatedly as we walked out to the end of the driveway, the owner took and pointed out to us places where they had tried to perk and they
I did see
failed.
that.
You can see the
So I'm
holes.
surprised to hear you say, couldn't we put the house closer?
Could we
Yeah.
put it closer towards the front end of the road? And I just didn't,
Mr. Chair, Greg, do you have the reports for the failed perk tests? Just to show us where they are?
I mean, we can certainly produce them for, I don't have them tonight.
If you just kind of put them on, it answers all the questions.
right.
That we can't put it here, we can't put it here, it just verifies your reasoning for putting it out in the back and eliminates any questions on this side.
Yep.
Did you have anything else, Jim?
No,
No, that was about it. I mean, I think the owner was great, you know, explaining stuff as we walked through, so.
Rich, do you have questions?
I did, if you could for a second, Greg, I do see the sectioned precast that you're gonna set in. Is that for all of the crossings you're going to use at?
On the detail sheet,
Yes.
let me change that plan.
Yeah, just so everybody can get an idea of what you're planning to do for the crossings themselves. Yep. So are you using that along all of the crossings?
Yes,
Okay, so everywhere you're going into the wetland, you're putting those precast pieces along, putting a roadway along the top, putting the culverts underneath,
yes.
and then
Yep.
digging out to create pools for the below grade.
Replication areas.
But how deep are you setting those precasts into the ground?
Well, they'd go, they'd just go down into naturally occurring material, so
Yep.
they'd be going down into, we'd be getting into certainly removing the topsoil, or whatever you'd call that in the wetland area. We'd be removing the organic
hydric
material,
soils?
and then we'd be getting down into the parent material underneath.
Yep, okay, so those are gonna be placed 1 to 2 feet deep, the footings?
I would say so.
Okay, I mean, you must be trying to get below frost.
Typically not. I mean,
Okay.
we would put that in, and we'd over excavate, we'd put some stone in there, so that
Yeah.
you'd have a free draining layer, but we wouldn't be getting down below frost for that type of wall. I mean,
Okay.
it's not, yes, a retaining wall is a structure, but it's not supporting a structure above it, so we wouldn't be worried about below
Okay.
frost grade in that situation.
And so you'll be putting the culvert piping underneath those structures?
Yeah, it would be going like through here.
Okay, so you're gonna have wetland material at this level, you're gonna have the footing down here, you're gonna have the culverts under that. How are we getting the water from grade down under the structures for the driveway and then back up on the other side to grade?
Yeah.
Without them clogging and caving in? and-
Yep, that's a good question. I'll see if I can explain that a little bit with the mic in hand. So this sketch doesn't do a great job at explaining that condition, Rich,
Okay,
but let me see if I can put legs on it for you.
okay.
Hope I don't knock the mic stand over. So, well, it does. So we have existing natural grade is down here. This is a standard detail. It's not going to be exact in every location, but it's intended to communicate. So where there's a culvert, the culvert would actually go, we matched existing grade at the culvert location, and we put the, so on the uphill side, if this is the flow direction, we'd have the inlet in of that culvert right at that location, and we'd run it in there like that. So that would be the location of the culvert. So you would never be, we're not sinking that culvert down below existing grade, we're putting it right at existing grade.
Okay,
So
so
that, again, with the.
So it's going through the wall of the structure?
Correct.
Okay.
So we'd be penetrating that wall. Right. Yep.
And what are you filling in with?
In here?
Yep.
Well, the top, of course, we'd have a paved surface and we'd have some gravel, but this would just be, a granular material. We wouldn't be using, obviously, organic soil. Those would be translocated for the wetland replication areas, but we'd be bringing in a granular you know, like common borrow type of product.
Okay.
Just something that's not gonna subside on us. I mean, we're not building a highway either, but, you know, we'll bring in something that's non-organic, for
Okay.
sure. Doesn't have the forgive me, but something that's free of deleterious material. So we're looking for good, clean, granular fill.
Okay. And do you have any spots in there for wildlife crossing? Any bottomless culvert sections, or I know we've had a few driveways just recently come in that have put in several
Yeah.
sections similar to that, but bottomless culvert.
Yeah, I mean, we did not propose any of those. We could certainly look to do some natural bottoms. There's no, just to say out loud, there's no intermittent or certainly no perennial or intermittent streams that are mapped on this, so we're not in the stream crossing category, stream crossing standards. If I can flip back again, sorry, hold on.
Just to make that point, as far as the wildlife crossings, how many feet of wall are you putting?
Again, I'd have to get that to you.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
from the looks of the plan,
There's quite a few.
It's 40% of the driveway.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So, I mean, you're blocking
there's a
off
lot.
quite a little bit, so
Yeah.
it might be
Yeah.
worth figuring out a few, and again, it's an ACEC, which
Yeah.
is an area of critical environmental concern, so
Yeah.
we
The-
do
the
want to
other-
make sure we take
I
every
did want to point out
precaution.
one thing relative to that point, though.
Yep.
I would just note while he's flipping the page, a lot of the culverts are 24 inches.
We-
Which would, you know,
Yeah, but you'd still want to have them, you'd have to have them half filled or
We could sink
some
them.
way
Exactly.
for,
We could
yes.
sink the invert and have a fill
Yep.
condition and so
Yeah,
on.
which is fine, it's just,
Yeah.
we have to have, I mean, turtles
Yeah.
aren't really big on just walking through corrugated pipe or whatever.
No.
They want to
But
have
to
some
that-
native base.
To that point.
Yep.
When you're not in the area where we're filling, so I'll just use this for an example. We have this section and there'll be a retaining wall on both sides from here to there. But then you have this whole section here that's open, and it's not, the grade of the driveway is not, you know, it's not gonna be as pronounced height-wise as it is when you go through the wetland area. So
Yep.
we do have a so the fact that it's decentralized fill helps from that standpoint. You don't have one long contiguous crossing. You have a bunch of smaller ones, so we have the opportunity for crossing, you know, like for example, crossing in here, then there'll be a retaining wall. Then you'll have a big gap and no retaining wall, then you'll have a small little impediment. Then you have another big gap, slightly larger one, but again, on the other side, you have another gap. So, you know, there's some built in there, but, you know, we could certainly look to sink a couple of the bigger culverts. I think we could bury a few of them.
Yep, yeah, because there are some, like I say, there are some good-sized wetland areas, and I mean, you have wildlife that's in the wetland areas that isn't in the upland areas, so
Yeah,
you're
right.
blocked off.
Yeah, I
For
understand.
those, you know, the upland guys, they'll walk across the street, but the wetland guys, they're not gonna slither down and around over the upland and then back into the
And
wetland.
there's no signs, as it
Yep.
turns out, yeah.
Yes.
Reading signs too.
Yes, they are. And the next question was, again, where it's an ACEC, our regulations state 2-to-1 replication.
Okay, all right.
So I myself would not be in favor of waiving the 2-to-1 replication regulation.
Okay.
There's plenty of area to increase it to
Yeah,
2
we
to
can-
1.
we can-
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
And the next question I had was, where we're coming back anyways, there's no 30, 50, or 100-foot,
I noticed that today, too.
yep. So,
You know, it's funny, you know, you look at a plan like this for so long, and you get to thinking, at least I get to thinking that we're doing so much wetland filling that it's a exercise in futility to show you the 30-foot and the 50-foot buffer zones, but we'll show them on the plan.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
yeah, I mean, when you look at it at that scale, yes, but
Yeah.
fortunately, in the digital age, you can take and blow that up pretty good.
Yep.
And you know, trying to figure out what we've got for disturbance, and of course, the disturbance amount of the 30 and 50 foot would be nice to have as well.
Okay.
And Greg, I
Yep.
also sent you the color codings that we would
Yep.
ask for in plans.
You did.
We'd do that too.
anything else, Richard?
To Jack's point, as far as an inventory of trees lost, my initial thought was, geez, we're putting in 8,000 square feet of replication area, that should give us back trees, but when you look at the scheme of plantings, 8,000 square feet of replication area has 7 trees. So we may need to revisit the density of the areas that we're disturbing and try to get that same density back in the replication areas.
Now, I'm assuming we're only talking about the 30-foot zone, correct?
I was talking about the wetland itself.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm talking about as far as counting the trees.
Yeah, I mean, we should have a rough idea, and again, if we're, the roadway is taking up 5,000 square feet of wetland area, so if we're putting back in 10,000 square feet of wetland, we should be at least duplicating what trees we're losing, so that the populations.
Yeah, although some of those replication areas are gonna go in areas that are wooded, and we're gonna be preserving trees, so we'll
Yep.
just have to look at that.
Maybe we can put them around, along the driveway a little bit more, or, it should be a little closer than 1 tree per 1,000 square feet, was just my
So
concern.
you're just looking for more density in the okay.
Yeah, again, roughly to what is being lost.
Okay.
I happened to read through Chuck Karen's report, and he didn't really go into density at all.
Yep.
He did list the species that were in there, and perhaps we can just expand on the species list a little bit more, again, where it's in an ACEC. Because he did have some, had some Tupelo and some other nice plants in there too, so.
I think his data sheets actually do, the vegetational part do go into density, but I don't
I
know
didn't
its percentage.
see it, no. Not his report, the application that was submitted.
I
Did
thought we
not.
gave you,
I didn't see,
I have a report from him. I'll
Yeah.
forward it to you. It does have density of vegetation on it.
okay.
There's a whole bunch of data sheets
yeah, I
that he
thought we
did.
did data sheets.
I'd just like to note at this juncture, that most of the replication areas that we
You
looked
did,
at were in a wooded area. So if we were gonna take and do, more trees, Rich, you'd have to do them, someplace not in the replication area.
Yeah, that's fine. But again,
Yep.
we should,
Well, point noted, Rich,
yeah, just, like I say, just try to make it a little more of what we're losing. Because it looked like,
It may not have been in the original submission, but I
Yep.
know I did get something subsequently
Super.
with transect sheets.
Yeah,
So I
I
can
think
send that
so.
over to
let's
you.
put it on the cloud so we have it. Like I say, it just, from what I read, didn't have it, so. And it looks like blacktop driveway,
correct,
going the whole, and that's the whole way,
yep.
okay? And I would imagine a schedule of construction,
Construction sequence,
yep.
okay.
Yeah, and it did kind of look like you had a little bit of a planting scheme on the plan, that the 80 scale was a little hard to see it all, but,
Yeah. It is. Yeah, there's,
well, yeah, I saw the scheme, and then I saw in the replication areas, you had a little bit of a dot here and there, but,
so,
and you only, I
we can
didn't,
maybe give you a little blow up of those areas or something.
perfect.
But,
And the only other question, let me just pull a plan up, there was a structure I'd never heard of before.
oh, I know what you're gonna say,
Okay,
but I'll let you say.
where was it, these bags?
Yeah.
N-Pack Boss dewatering filter bags.
Yeah, otherwise known as a dirt bag.
So it looks like we've got a fair amount of dirt bag on site.
Yeah, so we anticipating in these type of projects that somewhere along the line you may need to dewater. I don't know if we will or not, but, we might have an area that when we're excavating for the foundations for, not the foundations, but excavating to put those retaining walls in, that's probably the deepest excavation we're gonna do. That we may have a groundwater condition that we need to manage. So we'll put in a sump pump, and because we're so close to wetland areas, the best, or a method for making sure that you're not discharging silt into the downstream wetland areas is to discharge that sump pump into what's called, affectionately known as a dirt bag. It's just a big filter bag that lays on the ground, and you put the discharge side of the hose into that, and it has enough transmissivity it catches the silt in it, and then the water gets pushed through the filter bag, so it cleans and then you end up with a bag full of silt or dirt, so it's known as a dirt bag.
So is that in the, what's shown in that detail, it says removable pump station if required.
Yep. Correct. You know, it might not even rise to that level. I mean, they may not have to put a pipe in there. I mean, we don't have any typically a detail like that is for an excavation where we're, you know, well below a true water table in sand and gravel, where we have a high transmissivity of the soil, and the water is just racing through the sand and gravel, saturated layers down there, and we can't control it with a normal sump pump, so we'll put in a bigger, sort of like, almost like a well. I don't really anticipate that, but I didn't want to we didn't want to have our client in a situation where they needed something, and then it's not anticipated, so I anticipate more like a standard, what you probably have in your mind is a sump pump that is something that's this big, has a little screen on the bottom that's a couple inches circular, it goes down in the hole with some stone in it, and the, flexible, like a fire hose, 2-inch fire hose, comes out the top and then gets discharged. But the sediment bag would capture that flow and remove fine materials before it gets discharged.
Rich?
Yes.
I did put Chuck Karen's report on the cloud, I
Thank
did
you.
find it. And Greg, for the minutes, is dirtbag one word or two?
I don't know.
Richard, do you have additional comments, questions?
Erosion protection.
We do have erosion control line on the downhill side. Yeah, it's kind of a,
It's a heavy dash.
it's a heavy ditch.
Yeah, I see it.
It's kind of gray, and it comes down like this, and it goes right around the replication area, and then it hugs the wall.
Okay,
Goes around the
so,
replication area.
so it looks like stairs there on that corner, that's where you're putting the dewatering bags. The rest of that dash line is all of the,
There's, right here is a dewatering bag,
yep, okay.
and then that, the erosion control line goes out around that. It goes between the replication area and the wetland, so that we, because we do have to do a little grading in the
Yep.
replication area, so we don't want to translate that silt downstream, so we protect those areas. We did not show it on the uphill side, on this side, because it's uphill. So, we have, we've protected that those downgrading areas, which is this side of the site. And it goes all the way up, so you can see that dash line all the way up there.
Okay, I guess the only areas of concern I had was where you had the substantial downhill grading, downslope grading,
Look in here.
right there, and then just
here?
after the road, yep.
Yep,
And you seem to have the erosion protection
yep.
on the other side of the proposed wetland replication areas.
Yep, that's a good point. We could add an intermittent section between the replication areas.
Okay.
That probably would make sense.
And I didn't happen to notice, but you probably have it in here, a seating schedule for those slopes,
I'll check.
okay?
Probably in our general notes on the last page, but we'll make sure it's there, Rich.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it's very hard to read it on the PDF that I have, the notes. It's like every other letter is
Oh, yeah?
black and every other letter is grayed out, so.
Oh, okay.
Need a new version of,
We'll,
Adobe
see if
Reader.
that's on our end, or if it's we'll
I'm
make
told
sure.
it's my version of Adobe.
I think it may be his version of Adobe Reader.
All right. I don't know what I can do about that, but
You can't do anything about that, that's my problem.
There's seating scheduling at the replication areas.
Well, I saw a seating schedule for the replication area, but not
Right, but I'm talking
for,
about, in addition to just the actual wetland replication itself, there's extra seating, but I don't see anything on the
yeah, I saw it for
general
the,
construction notes.
we'll make
Nope.
sure we'll make sure we have it in there.
and last was just when you're putting in the 50 and 100-foot line, just make sure that the plan encompasses up to the 100-foot line. Because it looks like at the north end of the driveway, we may have
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
not gone all the way to the
I noted
edge of
that
the
too.
jurisdictional
Yeah,
line there.
I saw that today when I was coloring the plan.
Okay.
Stuff that you don't notice when you're doing Zoom. You don't spend the time coloring the plan on the, anyway.
And are there any other wetlands up where the house is, or do you get back up into the
On the
upland there?
back side of the house there is, but,
Okay.
but it's far enough back, I don't think we have an impact there with the house area.
Okay.
I don't know if that's, hold on.
No, it doesn't. No.
I think that's right.
Okay.
So you've got this whole area free. Or upland, I should say. But we'll clean that up for you, Rich.
How much further past the end of the drive are you putting the house?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. It was sort of our purview just to get them a driveway.
Okay.
But, we'll inquire, show it on there if you'd like. If it's known. I'm not sure he,
You can see on
yeah.
the
Feel free to
locust
speak
plan,
on-
you can see the wetland hash mark over here.
Right here. Yep.
Yep.
And it looks like the 200-foot riparian's far enough up that that's not an issue.
Good evening, Joel Normandin, 250 Howard Street, the owner. The residence is being sited approximately 150 feet away from the end of the driveway as it's currently proposed, where the end of the drawing is showing it. I am outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer with the house. The septic is approved by the Neshoba Board of Health. That permit's already been applied for and acquired, so this is actually the last step.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
So we have an approved septic plan?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you do a septic plan?
We didn't do it, no, someone else.
Who did the septic plan? Okay, so Doug did it, okay. Can you ask Doug to email me a PDF of your septic plan? Beautiful. Rich, I'll
Thanks,
throw
Joel.
that should show that back edge of wetland.
Okay, yeah.
There you go, problem solved.
Yep,
That's good for now. It looked like you were taking all the good notes.
I did take notes. I don't know if they're good, but I took notes.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any comments or questions from members of the public, either via Zoom or in the room?
Okay, that rhymed.
Seeing none, looking for a motion to continue until July 7th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you,
Think you have some homework.
appreciate it.
All right, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for delineation of a resource area at 988 Reservoir Road by John Keating will be held. I thought I saw Brian Butler. Brian, I think you can unmute yourself.
Kyle Cormier here with Oxbow, representing the applicant.
Oh. So are you representing Keating, Kyle?
Yes.
All right. I was under the impression that Brian had done the wetlands delineation, so I thought he was here for that.
I'm out of that office.
All right, thank you. Tell us what you're doing here.
So the site is a 95-acre parcel, but we're requesting the commission to affirm the delineated resource areas, which we delineated on site. Series C and A. Series C is a BVW, C1 and C13, and we also included some data sheets, DP data sheets, to go along with that wetland series. And then also a local jurisdictional wetland, IBW, the A series, A1 through 10. The site has historically been used as mineral extraction and material handling areas. And nearly all the superficial soils on site have been disturbed or removed in some way. If there are any questions from the commission, I'd be happy to take them.
Idle curiosity, do you know why the property has that odd shape in the back there? it's not important and it's not germane to the application, I just,
Towards the top part of the plan?
yeah,
I think that's a separate lot that's being added to the purchase.
okay.
I went out
Yeah,
and.
not sure why it's shaped like that.
I went out and I reviewed the wetland delineation itself on site, as well as the documentation. It's accurately represented, and it's accurately represented on the plan. They did a nice job locating those sites. The only thing we can't do right now is we can approve it pending a DEP number. I just don't, it's not a construction project, so I don't see DEP as having any comments. There's no rare species habitats on the property, no vernal pools, nothing like that, so you could approve it pending the DEP number. But I have no issue with what's shown on site.
Comments or questions from commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I did have one area that wasn't called out, and I'm not sure. It looks like there's standing water there.
Where are we talking?
The northwest corner, when I look at the overhead satellite view. If you looked at it at Oliver, it's right in the middle of the, that second piece of property that's in there.
In the northwest corner?
Yeah, right here, Bob.
Yep. I'll find that.
I mean, it clearly looks devoid of any trees.
I have to take a look at the map to see what you're looking at. I do know that there were areas that were, areas that were excavated for minerals that, you had some settling ponds that were in there, like a couple. And that's probably what you could be seeing on site. I have to take a look at it on this map here, but they weren't wet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly good size area. Looks like it's about 180 feet across.
May I just comment that that area is probably a spill from wash ponds. No wetlands vegged in those areas.
Mr. Chairman?
Who is speaking?
That's Brian.
This is Brian Butler. I wasn't expecting to be available for the meeting, but here I am. And, the area I think Rich is mentioning there is an area that was an overflow for the secondary wash pond on the remaining feeding property. So it's all stained by rock flour. I think it's killed off the upland trees there, but it's not it's an ephemeral, or it will be discontinued when the property is conveyed. So historically, this rock flour or wash water was discharged into that kind of crater basin there, and killed all the trees, probably from smothering them with rock flour. But it's not an upland. I think Matt and I walked it today.
Okay, I see the area you're talking about. Yeah, that's a wash pond.
Yeah, and it's on the.
Though, like I said, there was a couple of areas that were detaining areas.
But it's not a resource area, it's just an area that's been stained by a lot of rock flour during washing operations, which doesn't seem to be anytime recent, and certainly can't continue with if this land is conveyed.
So, and I didn't go out on site, so just looking at the plan with the elevations, you're not gonna get any flow from the wash pond on the neighboring property into that spot? Because that,
No, because that.
I mean, it looks like that's kind of swamped over, that old wash pond.
Yeah, I don't know what events it would wash over. It certainly hasn't done it for quite some time from the looks of it, Rich. But that you wouldn't continue with the conveyance of this property. There's also a channel excavated through this property that does the same thing as an overflow. And Matt and I examined that.
Yeah, that area out there is basically full of Russian olive.
Okay. As long as you've been out there, Matt, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
say, from the elevations they have here, it runs right from that wash pond on the neighboring property right into that spot, so. That was the only thing
Well, I
that
mean,
we're
we're gonna have to account for any changes in the land like that with any construction projects proposed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna have to be taken into account for any stormwater management.
Which wash pond on neighboring land are you talking about, Rich? Because the wash pond I see
Wash
shows-
pond number 2. Right here. There's no elevation change from wash pond number 2 into this
Okay.
devoid area here, that's
I'm
all.
looking at the 2-foot contours on the 316. No, I think you're right, because according to the 2-foot contours on the assessor's website, the LiDAR contours, they're showing like 312 in that wash pond you're talking about, the neighboring property, and they're showing 310 on that.
Okay.
So you're absolutely correct.
And the grade change certainly is subtle, but it hasn't been wet all of this year when we've been out there. And the pond to the west, the secondary settling basin, is a Phragmites marsh, kind of growing up it's a monoculture growing up in an entirely synthetic soil made out of rock flour. And I don't know what events it would spill over there, but again, it may only be a foot or two difference between that basin on the J&A property and the secondary settling basin, but it's adequate enough that it's contained, the basin is contained under normal circumstances.
All right, Matt, you've said you've been out, you walked into that
About
area?
3 times.
Okay. No, if Matt says it's not wet, because an NRAD just locks us in at this point if it is wet.
That was one of the first places we looked because it looks, with all that rock flour staining, it looks like it should be a wetland. And so that was the second place we actually looked when reviewing the site initially. The first was the ditch.
Yeah,
We
those
call
areas,
that a rock
they're not even growing hydrophilic vegetation, it's just a nice crop of Russian olive.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the public in the room or on Zoom?
Mr. Chairman?
Jack?
Thank you, sir. Can the folks at home see what we're looking at?
Nope.
No. So it'd be tough to get a question or comment, I guess.
True that.
Yeah. I mean, we need something like right there where they can blow it up for them or something. I've seen it. I didn't bring my computer, and all I know is, thank goodness, I got my buddy here, but,
I mean, that's something we can.
Yeah, let's make an
We
improvement.
can discuss, yeah, because it's a good point. As we all said earlier, it's a
learning, that's fine.
relearning curve.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Kyle or I could probably share an image if there's anybody in the public that wants to see the ortho photograph or any of the other materials.
Yeah, I could share my screen.
Just to move us along, I might add that perhaps we just continue it, and if there's anybody that wants to access this information, they can contact the office, and Matt can.
Well, we can't issue anything anyway until
Right.
DEP issues a file number, so.
Yep, so that way that'll answer the question if anybody has any questions.
Yep. So I'm looking for a motion to continue since there is no DEP number.
Make a motion to continue to July 7th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any questions, Kyle?
Yep, thank you.
All right. Continued public hearings pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Municipal Bylaws. A public hearing on a notice of intent at 326 Highland Street by, that one was already continued by my prior announcement earlier in the meeting. It was rescheduled, not continued, it was rescheduled. It was rescheduled to July 7th. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by the Town of Lunenburg for a replacement of the bridge at Flat Hill Road adjacent to 878 Flat Hill Road. Note 878 Flat Hill Road is a private residence used for reference purposes only. Is someone here to represent that application? Either in person or on Zoom? Excuse me?
I saw Emily Martin on Zoom.
I see Olivia Richards.
Hello.
And you have the ability to unmute yourself, so take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great.
Would you like the ability to share your screen?
Sure, I can pull up the plan. But basically, this is a continuation from the last hearing. We have received our DEP file number. And there were a few questions we had that we talked to Matt about earlier this week. And we're just looking for any special conditions pertaining to the project at this point.
Were there any comments, Matt, from DEP?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. No.
Another question I had at the last hearing was about dewatering the site, seeing as that the flow from the brook has to be, moved from one side of the bridge to the other. So you're not creating an impoundment.
Yep. So at the last hearing, Joanna mentioned that she could get us some flow rates. We're working on getting those numbers from her and incorporating that into our project specifications. So the contractor knows what kind of flow he needs to accommodate for during construction.
But that hasn't happened yet.
No, we're trying to coordinate with her as well as looking to see if any, we're coordinating with the Shirley Concom to see if there's any need from them on these items. But to be clear, we don't intend to influence the time in which they perform their drawdown. We just intend to coordinate our construction around their planned drawdown.
I can confirm that I did meet with him on Zoom last week, and they are working to try to get a hold of Mike Fleming from Shirley to coordinate with him. Mike has he's got some vacation time and reduced hours right now, so he eventually will call him
I
back.
did talk with Mike yesterday.
Did you finally get a hold of him?
I got a hold of him yesterday, and he just requested that I send over the NOI we submitted in Lunenburg, which I did, and he was just going to run it by the chairman and then get back to Matt.
Good.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
So I guess just to your point, Mr. Chair, on the concern of dewatering, I would think it wouldn't be too hard for them to come up with a watershed area and determine the flow at that point.
Street stats will do that for them.
Yep, and make sure that they have in place in their application sufficient method of dewatering.
You mean in the construction specifications?
Yes. And did we ask at the last meeting for a construction schedule? Day by day, week by weeks, kind of granular, where they intend to be on day 1, day 7, day 14?
I believe that was coming in with the bids based on the construction specs, because each company is gonna bid it differently.
Myself, I would like to see that put into their specs, because it's definitely, they have a very limited window of low water there at Lake Shirley. So somebody that may not be familiar with the area may think that they have 6 months to do it when they actually have 6 weeks or 8 weeks possibly to do it. So I think there should be a schedule, construction schedule in there, taking into consideration the drawdown. And I believe I had asked for that at the last meeting.
Olivia or Emily, construction specifications as far as scheduling?
Yep, so currently our construction specs call for a beginning date and an end date being like, I believe mid-October, dependent on drawdown, to December, that the construction would be happening. And our specifications call for the contractor who wins the bid to submit a schedule of operations for review. So that's definitely something we can have them submit to Concom as well, once we have the contractor selected.
So the specifications call for a construction scheduling based on the drawdown period from October to December. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, right now I provide that beginning and end limit, which we will happily modify as needed. And we will get a more thorough construction schedule from the contractor when it is awarded.
Okay. Where in the application is this construction window?
Oh, so it's under our construction specifications that go out in the bid package.
Okay.
But if you have a beginning and end date that you would like us to remain in, we'll be happy to modify it to meet that.
I would rather leave it to you to figure out the conditions on the ground and come up with those dates that you feel that the project can be performed in.
Okay.
And tell us what those dates are.
Yep.
In your application to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I believe the dates Olivia just mentioned are in the notice of intent, just those months are laid out.
Do you happen to know where? Or if you could just point them out to us at some point.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, but I can do that.
Yeah. Now, as you can see, we're fairly concerned about replacing this bridge in the small window that you have, so we just want to make sure there's no issues prior to issuing our determination.
Yeah, we can, I can't pull it up right now, but we can send to Matt where it is in the NOI.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
A question. In your opinion, how long should this take? I mean, it looks like it's a precast unit that's dropped in place, and then essentially you can reopen that stream. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, so it's a precast structure, so the intent would be to, install the control of water, excavate the little causeway road in that area, drop in the precast wing walls, precast box culvert, backfill, reopen the road. We're trying not to restrict the time in which that's done too much, because then we will see an increase in price due to the associated risk on the contractor. So we do like to provide them at least 4 weeks of closure time on the road there with a detour. But besides that, it's a pretty short duration for this to be performed because it is all precast components.
Yeah, my concern isn't the road closure, my concern is to get that riverbed opened again. How long do you think that would be closed for?
Well, as we mentioned during the last hearing, it would be sandbagged and blocked off, but also the contractor will have a bypass pipe. And if there's any rainfall event expected, he needs to put that in. So one benefit of this construction is that they close off the area, they excavate. There is still a way through that construction zone that can allow water. So if they need to put in a pipe through the construction zone to allow flow through during construction, they can work around that. Or if there is some hurricane or major rainfall event expected, that we can, clear the zone, allow the flow to come in, and then resume.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
I did find where all on-site work is anticipated to be performed between September and January. And again, some of it's not necessarily the water being down on the Lake Shirley side, it's the amount of water that's gonna come down that brook if we get 2 inches of rain when the ground's frozen and there's no penetration of the rainwater. So just want to make sure that we've got that in place prior to getting this started.
Absolutely.
And I saw in the book, I also noticed that their dewatering specifications in here pretty much match our boilerplate.
And so what does that mean in terms of?
In other words, they do basically pump, hose, sump basin, erosion controls.
Yeah, as long as, but for me, I just want to see a figure of, make sure that they know how much water could come down there in 2 inches of rain.
Absolutely.
If they have a 12-inch pipe, thinking that's going to do it.
I mean, that's a fairly big watershed, if you go to the USGS stream stats, pump in your numbers, it should tell you pretty clearly, what the flow will be through there. And I'd like to hear that number and hear that you have a pump that can do that before we issue an approval.
Mr. Chairman, another question, I guess.
Go ahead.
There was a study done probably 10 years ago, and I live on Lake Shirley, so they were trying to figure out where all this algae was coming from, and one of the main sources of this algae was this brook, stream, river. And I believe, I'd have to double check, I took screenshots, but it's on my iPad at home, but I think upwards of 70% of the water that comes into this lake is under that bridge. Just to give you some numbers there. So if you get 2 inches of rain, and at least when I live on Lake Shirley, 3 days later, the water's up at least a foot. So if you take that acreage of Lake Shirley and take 70% of that, that's how much water you're gonna have to divert around that. That's a lot of water, in my estimation. So, just a statement more than anything else. Thanks.
So for the flow rate numbers, should we talk to Joanna or should we just pull off the values from the USGS website? Is it the same data? Is there a benefit to Joanna's data?
I think that's your job, right?
And speaking for myself, I'd like to see USGS. One of our members is pulling it up right now. It doesn't take long.
Yeah, I mean, we can pull the flow rates off of there. We're familiar with that. It just seemed like at the last hearing that there was, that Joanna had different data. But we can use the USGS flow rate numbers and determine what to expect for the contractor. But
part of that data and the reason why it was discussed at previous meetings, and I believe we discussed this at our Zoom meeting too, was that part of the Shirley Concom's order of conditions required a constant flow rate coming off the Shirley Dam, coming off of Lake Shirley during the drawdown period, because of the perennial stream considerations and the stream standards for drawdown in DEP regulation. That's what the flow data was for. It was to ensure that, you know, this work wouldn't wind up disrupting that flow for any length of time that would be unacceptable to the Shirley Concom. So.
It's the watershed.
But yeah, as Bob just said, you know, our chairman just said.
Oh, God, no.
The USGS will probably suffice to be able to give you those calculations. Wind up helping you generate those numbers anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of water goes in there. I'm just looking to see it.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the public, either on Zoom or at home? Seeing none, I think I'd like a motion to continue.
So moved. To what date?
To July 7th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So, for us to approve this, I guess we're looking for that flow rate. Anything else? Rich, did you want more on the schedule? Are you happy with what you see on the schedule there?
For me, when we move forward, if we approve this, there would be a condition that we would review with the contractor and approve the schedule prior to construction.
So you'd be happy with conditioning that?
Yep.
So basically, at this point, I think the only thing we're looking for are those flow rates, you know, and some assurance that, you know, that provisions can be made, you know, to, you know, get the whole brook flow, you know, around the site.
Okay.
Is there anything else we could do to get any special conditions ready so that we could hopefully, get it
I'm sorry,
organized?
Emily, I can't understand you in the room here.
Sorry.
Can you say it again more slowly?
Oh, sorry.
Because it echoes in the room. It's not your fault. It echoes in the room here.
If there's anything else we would need to get other special conditions ready so that we're sort of ready to go before next meeting, as long as we bring those flow numbers.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Abbott?
Will we be looking for some sort of probabilistic projection in terms of what that flow could look like? I don't want to hear the average flow, and I don't want to hear what does that curve look like? Because we're getting greater rain events that are kind of blowing out some of the old numbers. And would it be reasonable to say that within if all of a sudden we're looking like the probability could be exceeded, we have a point in which we can pull the plug? Is there some sort of a tracking that looks at the annual rainfall at certain times? And what's the plus or minus? What's the standard deviation around that? Would that make sense in terms of projecting? What is the probability of getting in trouble? And then looking for countermeasures in terms of how that contractor is going to handle those situations. Because just throwing in a big honking pipe is kind of difficult to all of a sudden, you know, I got 2 days notice here, you know.
Well, I don't know if I try to do that kind of a specific curve based on speculation.
Well, no,
what I probably would do is I'd probably do like a max rainfall, like a projected max rainfall, what that would do to the stream and how you would handle it, part of your flow projections.
Some sort of confidence level.
So if you had a really bad rainstorm, how could it be handled?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, because the height of the construction activities that need to be performed while the sandbags are up and that area is closed off, we can coordinate that around when we can open it back up. We can reorient the sandbags to allow flow down through the middle where the culvert is during some of the construction activities. If it's something we need to, based on the flow rates, we'll look at the numbers, and if it's something we need to minimize, It could be a short closure duration, get that existing culvert out of there, install the box culvert. We now have a path for the flow to get through. Use the sandbags to block off the approaches. The contractor can perform the approach work. So we can work around as needed. We can open it up. We have options beyond the pipe. But from a preliminary look, we thought that we could use a pipe, but if not, we can work around that. And we'll give numbers and parameters that the contractor has to meet so that when he proposes his means and methods of control water, it will meet these parameters.
Excellent, thank you.
I'd like to move on to the next hearing then. Matt, are we going to continue Kevin Hill?
Yes.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Kevin Hill for work at 41 Country Road will be held. Work proposes the construction of a single-family home, driveway, and a septic grading within the buffer zone. I'm looking for a motion to continue
To July 7th?
till July 7th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. When Matt comes back, I want to ask about where we are with that. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. In the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination for work on beach raking at 90 Roos Street by Brian Dalmaso.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that be continued. I have some scenarios that I'm currently working out that I'd like to discuss with you in the upcoming week. The commission had asked, there was nothing wrong, basically, like Rich had been talking about earlier, that he would prefer, beach maintenance to be done by going in and raking it out, which is what they did. That's what the RDA is for, but it had also been brought out that maybe we could look at different ways to examine to prevent the erosion from happening. I have a couple of different ideas. I wanted to review them with the chair before I brought them back to the homeowner for further discussion.
Make a motion to continue to July 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Before we go on, where are we with Country Road? We've continued this like 4 times. I don't think we have a plan. Why are we continuing to carry this?
They did file, but the problem is that the plan that they originally filed, they have to totally redraw due to an error in the septic system siting. And there is a possibility it could be withdrawn, but right now they've just asked us for a continuance.
And we are getting written requests for continuances every 2 weeks? Okay, thank you. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by the Town of Lunenburg, Thomas Wu and Scott Benjamin will be held. Work proposed is restoration of a parking area to a naturalized state on town property at Fire Road 12.
Still don't have a DEP number.
No DEP
And
number.
I put in inquiries to DEP about it. They're just, in fairness to DEP, they're just backlogged.
Make a motion to continue to July 7th.
Second?
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't imagine, I can't understand why they're backlogged. I mean, we're having 18, 22 hearings a night, it's, this is going on in other towns.
Actually, a lot of them are very busy.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Christopher and Susan DeGeorge will be held. Work proposed is improvement of access to Lake Shirley and control of erosion within 100 feet of a wetland resource area at 48 Pearl Street.
Okay, so Chris Anderson should be here for that.
Chris Anderson, you can unmute yourself, Chris.
On this one, there's nothing in the cloud that's new, but he did provide hard copies, so I have them here for you to review.
For you?
So can
the commission hear me?
I can hear you.
Just for the record, Chris Aaron from Hannigan Engineering here on behalf of Chris and Susanna George. This project was brought back before the commission several months ago, and we kind of left it off at doing a site walk to evaluate the site in person with my guidance, just to show what our intent is and the methodology behind the actual design of the site.
No, he gave us
since that time,
he could screen share.
Oh.
Hey, Chris?
Since that time, we have...
Chris, do you have a copy of your revised plan with you on your computer?
Yes.
Would you mind screen sharing?
Absolutely.
They have the hard copies, but I figured with this, we all have Zoom up on, at least I do, and a couple of others do on our computers here, but we have the big TV, so if we could see the plan on it, I think it
And
would
the
just
people
make
at
it
home
easier.
can see it also.
Yeah.
No problem. So can the commission see my screen now?
Yep. There you go. Beautiful.
Perfect. Okay. So just to recap on what the site is, currently the property does have a single-family home with a steep slope that goes from the top of the hill where the house is situated towards Lake Shirley. Currently there is a existing stair timber stone walkway that traverses down from the house to the beach area along Lake Shirley. In addition to that, there are various areas of severe erosion that have happened over the course of time, just from the general use of the property and loss of trees and vegetation in areas. The intent that we construct a brand new stairway system that will be essentially within the existing footprint of the stairway system itself. This will be an elevated wooden deck type platform stair system, which will traverse down the site and into or down to the shoreline area of the property. Since the previous meeting, we did review with several commission members, had a couple ideas, and the project proponents have reevaluated how they wanted to interpret this. As such, instead of having the stairway system be right against the shoreline of the site, it's the intent now that we'll put the wall in front of the stairway system so that the stairs are behind the wall with a masonry stairway system at the very end as it drops off onto the platform, onto the shoreline area. As you can see, apologize. Through here. This is one of the major changes that was made.
By the way, while he's adjusting his plans, it has a DEP.
And what that does is it pulls the platform or the last stair system further away from the shoreline itself.
No comment. It does have a number, no comment.
In addition to that, we did reevaluate the actual shoreline. When you walk the actual site, the shoreline is predominantly comprised of a weird concrete block system where, in my opinion, it looks like somebody just formed a concrete form along the shoreline, filled it with large stone, and just poured concrete into it. At this point in time, that wall is essentially not functioning as intended anymore. It's falling apart and is not working and is causing erosion into the lake itself. So it is proposed that we'll install a block retaining wall along the shoreline at a commensurate level and elevation as the existing wall along the shoreline. In addition to that, the other modification that was made was that part of the initial submittal was a retaining wall system along the area that's designated as area number 1. In this place, we'll be using a stone stabilized slope, which we comprised of placed stone instead of dump stone that you typically see of riprap. This will give a armored protection to prevent any kind of further erosion or scoffing of the slope in this area, which is one of the major issues that if you were on the site, this area is heavily eroded. And by placing this and smoothing out the elevations and the grades and the removal of that one tree in that corner, that will help alleviate the velocity gradient that's being formed by the undercutting of the soil. Besides that, the general intent of the project remains as was originally presented. We are proposing to access the lower portion of the site during the drawdown period of the lake. As you can see on the plan, we did survey locate the actual water level of the lake on December 7th of the past year. As you can see, the lake level in this area drops drastically. So during this time, there'll be adequate space for construction work to occur in order to properly install that wall for the long-term stability of that slope. Besides that, if there's any questions from the commission, I'll be more than happy to address them.
Mr. Rabbit,
I'm a little bit confused, but.
is your microphone on, Jack?
I'm so confused here these days. Hey, okay, I'm looking at
Your microphone doesn't do any good 3 feet away, Mike.
Okay, banking remediation detail here talks about the embankment, yet they're talking about a block wall on the shoreline. So, which is it?
There are some natural stone on the very perimeter of the shoreline on the north and south of the site. Primarily in this area, it's kind of near the property junction with the abutting property.
So, up at the northern tier, or the top tier, you've got some small pieces there, but then you've continued to block all the way through. Why wouldn't we stay with the same remediation approach versus a wall?
This is purely based on a construction perspective. The time and energy that's required to install a natural bank in this area for the overall length is very time consuming. And our intent is to get in and out of this area as quickly as possible. In order to facilitate that, a precast block wall would be much more advantageous to getting this work done out of the area as quickly as possible.
There's an existing wall.
Yeah, that's a piece of concrete block.
Well, these are the pictures that are on the cloud.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff cut out. And
I didn't know if we had any from the waters.
So I guess my question would still stand.
What's your question, Jack?
The question would be, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, is that why we would, rather than allowing the block, why wouldn't we go back to the, basically, we've had boulders and such used as retaining walls, and allows those little creatures that climb around on it, but at the same time, it does break the wave up. Jeff, we did that at your place.
This is at the edge of the water, Jack?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jeffrey.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. There is an existing wall there, just from the site walk that I remember from. There are concrete sections to the wall that have broken apart, and there are sections that are stone. That's my memory of that wall. So there is an existing, let's say, wall there right now, and some of it does include quite a bit of concrete. So.
Yeah, and
it's a step down to the water, essentially, from that section of land. So if you did have a picture from the shoreline, you'd see a wall.
How much of the wall would we see, do you think?
I'm guessing about a foot.
Yeah, I would say about a foot, based on the sidewalk that we did there.
Yeah, I didn't get down that low.
Well, that's right, yeah, you stayed on the stairs.
It was steep.
I'm handicapped here. So,
if the commission would look at my screen, you can see that this is what essentially is along the entire shoreline.
Exactly.
These block concrete systems, and that pretty much runs along, and as you get outside of the quote-unquote beach, little alcove area, it gradually gets much more degraded, and you can still see the concrete, but it's more block or stone cemented into place with concrete. The base of the concrete has essentially raveled off and has exposed the underlying stone.
Mr. Birch.
Mr. Chairman, north of the dock, it looks like we have rock wall in place in front of the block wall on the plan? Is that what I'm seeing, Chris?
Yeah, there's more naturalized stone retaining wall areas in the northern corner of the site as well, so we're going to try to maintain that and rebuild it as necessary.
Yeah, at both extremes of the property, there was natural stone instead of the concrete block.
Just in looking at the plan, it looked like just north of where the dock is going to be relocated to. I'm not quite sure,
Yeah,
but
that's
I'm not quite sure why we have,
graphical representation.
it looks like we have stone in front of the block
Right.
on the plan you handed out.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
And in that area, it's much more degraded, so that's why it's more called out as a stone wall, but it is cemented in place at the shoreline.
But are you?
So what are you putting back?
Say it again?
What are you putting back? You've got both materials shown on this plan.
In other words, you got a block wall, and then it shows the stone in front of the block wall. What are you planning to put there where it shows both?
If you blew it up a little bit, Chris, you'd see what we're talking about.
You mean that area right there?
Yep, from just north of where the relocated dock is, it looks like you've got it running the whole length there.
Yeah, so
Is that
that's
just-
that's the older existing wall system that
Okay.
kind of has gradually degraded. So it's cemented stone that once upon a time, I would perceive would be that block system.
Okay.
So that's an existing feature, not a proposed feature.
Okay. And what is the general summertime level of the water in front of the wall?
About 6 inches below the top of the wall.
Below the bottom of the wall? Top of the wall? Okay.
So the water line essentially comes right up to the shoreline.
So you think the water level's basically 299?
Yeah, for conversation purposes, we can call it 299, 299 and a half-ish.
Okay. And 100-year floodplain is 302?
Floodplain is 302, and as part of the resubmittal here, I did provide an updated floodplain calculations, and we are providing in excess of the altered areas as part of this general redevelopment. It's not a significant amount of area. It's part of the overall application, but at the end of the day, we'll have a cumulative of additional 215 cubic feet of flood storage on the property. And that's pretty much just isolated to the area behind the shed for compensation, and alteration would just be general fill around the toe of the slope going towards the shoreline.
I'm seeing some blocks, but I'm seeing a lot of rocks there too. Okay, so you get some old blocks kind of sitting along the edge, but the rest of that wall becomes stone.
There's concrete under that though.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's, I didn't get over to that part, but
It's like,
and it looks like look at the concrete now, it's,
just so they kind of blends in with what the neighbor has, which is more stone.
Yeah.
And the neighbor's dock is right there.
Right.
Do you have additional questions, Richard?
Yeah, one other quick question, Chris. We have area of erosion 1. Can we get a little more description on what we're putting back in there for the plantings to help control the erosion? It just says, loam seed, plant small shrubs, and 2 trees.
Yeah, so essentially, because we don't know what vegetation is going to be available when we get to this point in time for that planting, we would propose that we consult with Matt Morrow prior to planting to confirm that the plants that are available on nursery stock could satisfactorily hold back that slope. But the intent is just to use small tubeling shrub plantings in this area with that erosion control blanket to help stabilize that area long term.
Okay, how big is the area?
That area is probably about 20 feet long along the shoreline and goes back into the hill about 10, 15 feet.
Okay. So 20 by 15, so 300 square feet?
About, yes.
Okay, and if we said maybe one plant, 3 foot on center, so every 9 square feet?
You probably put
I think that would be-
in that area, you'd probably want to do it in a triangular pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I can calculate that out with them.
Yep, now, just if we can have it as part of our approval. At least a planting count.
I don't foresee an issue with that kind of a planting. It's not that small, large of an area, so we can easily accommodate that.
Okay.
Richard, do you have more questions?
I don't, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rabbit?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your notes, erosion area treatment number 1, you're gonna remove an existing 16-inch pine stump on that slope?
Correct. So in this area, there's that existing tree, and essentially what has happened, it appears that another tree that was in that area fell down at some point in time, and just over the course of seasonal rains and everything like that, the soil is actually getting undercut underneath that tree. What that's doing is it's just gradually just eroding underneath. I just pulled up a picture of this tree here.
Erosion area he's talking about is over here.
Oh, yeah.
Picture.
I was talking about that.
Right there, he's got it on the
Yeah.
screen, you can see it.
Okay.
That's why I was concerned with what we're putting back for plants where they were taking the stump out.
Yep.
So if they're gonna put back plants 3 foot on center,
Then we're all set then.
that should root back in and hold that banking in.
Okay.
Yeah. What we're trying to do is that tree, at some point or another, is going to come down, either naturally or by artificial means. So it's better to get it taken care of while we still have control over it. And right now, the erosion the area is just cascading, and there's really no stopping it, besides reducing the velocity gradient coming through this area.
This tree, and they're gonna remove that tree.
Jack, did you have additional questions or comments?
Just with regard to this tree or section 2, you're leaving the stumps?
In that
I guess
area, pretty much the tree stumps would have to be removed. And for that reason, if you look through here on the screen in front of you, the 16 and the 20-inch pine are in close proximity to the actual retaining wall system. In order to install that retaining wall system, you have to cut back into the slope at about a commensurate rate, or commensurate height of the wall. So the wall is about 5 to 4 feet tall in this area. So you typically have to cut in an additional 6 feet or 8 feet or so in order to get the construct the wall and to install the appropriate stabilization methods behind the wall.
Okay.
And just by doing that by nature, the trees are going to be in the way.
Yeah. Chris, those weren't the pines, those are the 2 oaks, a 16-inch oak and another 10 or 16-inch oak. This is removed trees. They're not
one
pine, they weren't
16-inch
pines.
oak near the proximity of the wall, a 20-inch pine near the wall. There's another smaller pine near the wall, and there is a 16-inch oak also on the slope. And I'll try to find the picture of it. But it's essentially the same situation we're in with the tree on the other side of the stairway system. Where the soil is just gradually undercutting itself. And in order to smooth out this area, to reduce that cut that's occurring right now on the slope, that tree would have to be removed in this area, regraded to create a nice even slope along this area.
Then why are we removing them if they're that far away from, some of them are away from the stairway and the such, the 16-inch oak. Chris, I'm talking about, your area 2, erosion treatment area 2, and then you've got arrows that are pointing to that oak, which is next to that pine, the 9-inch palm you're talking about, and then it's also pointing up a little further up the slope to another oak. That's the 16-inch oak.
Right.
So why are we and why are we stumping it?
Because we need to regrade this area. And if we leave the stump in there, it's just going to create more of an hindrance for the construction ability of this area.
And you're going to put in 6 trees, 2.5-inch trees? Is that where you're putting them, right in that area?
There'll be a few up in this area, within the, planning in, sorry. There will be a few trees up along this slope area. And then the rest of them will be placed along the northern corner of the property, where there's a bunch of other larger trees and more usable area for tree growth to occur.
There's a 4-foot drop.
And is that shown somewhere on the plan, Chris, where these trees will be planted?
Yes, if you look on the screen now, the 6 trees in this portion of the property are shown. And obviously we would evaluate the site or the locations on property when they're being planted with Matt, just to confirm that everything makes sense in the world.
Yeah.
Thank you. I should have been able to see that for myself.
And Chris, a little further up on the stairwell to the, is this a 12-inch oak that you're going to remove?
So, I'm going to preface this by saying it's our intent not to cut down every tree on the property. I'm showing these trees being potentially removed in order to aid in construction. It's in relatively close proximity to the stairway system, and when the contractor is installing it, I don't want, in case something happens and these trees get damaged or whatnot, or are just a general hindrance to the usability of that walkway.
Right.
I want there to be a mechanism so that they could be potentially removed. But if they can remain in place, it's our intent to keep them in place.
Right, because you've also got on the other, just a little further up the slope, you've got another 14-inch oak you're taking out as well.
Yes,
You've
correct.
got 1, 2, and the 3 and 4 oak that I can see so far. And that's a pretty steep slope. You need everything you can get to hold it together. And I appreciate you not grading that section.
Correct. And in this area, we can evaluate. It's not in an area of severe erosion, so the stumps for those 2 trees could potentially remain intact, and the area just kind of smoothed over.
Is that a 8-foot, 308?
My intent is I just don't want to come back before the commission, emergency state, asking for the removal of 2 trees. That's my only concern.
Never hurts to come back, though. Didn't we go over this one? Yeah.
Mike LaRouche, you have any questions?
No, I think you've been addressing all the things that I would have asked, so I appreciate you staying ahead of me.
Thanks, Mike. I gotta get you in practice.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I did have another quick question.
Go ahead.
Above the floodplain compensation area that we're proposing, we have provide retaining wall, but there's no top of wall, bottom of wall, wall construction. Is that something you're coming back for after you do the lake edge wall?
If you look on the screen now, It's a proposed block retaining wall system. I do have a spot shots for the top of the wall along this area, with spot shots along the toe of this wall as well. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, where do you have the shots of the proposed top of wall?
Where it says TWL.
Okay,
So it'll start essentially at the existing grade of 300 in the corner, bump up to 302, run to 302, for essentially the entire length of the face of the wall against the lake, and then slowly creep up, as you can see here. You have top of wall at 304, bottom of the wall at 300, top of wall 306, bottom wall 304.
okay, I guess on my plan, most of that terminates in the walkway.
I think it's more of just a drafting issue. There's a lot in this area.
Okay.
If you look at here on the sides, you see it. But obviously, this wall will have to be designed by a structural engineer just because of the nature of the height.
Okay.
So final wall design can be provided to the commission prior to construction.
Okay, so we'll expect that then for approval prior to installation of that?
Yes. It's gonna be a typical landscape retaining wall system. Nothing too fancy.
Okay, it looks like it might have a little bit of height here and there, 3 feet, 4 feet, 2 feet.
Yes. Yeah, it's the goal to keep it under 4 as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I see one place where it's 4.
Yep. And on the elevated stairway, we'll have a better plan on that as far as where the supports are gonna be and how that's gonna be constructed?
Correct, yeah, that will also need to be a plan prepared, but it'll be slightly elevated above the ground with crushed stone underneath it.
Mm-hmm. But as far as material and design, then we'll expect that for approval later as well?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments from members of the public?
Through the chair, I just got one last comment I want to make the commission aware.
Go ahead.
As the commission is probably very much aware, the slope is excessively steep. So as part of the overall project, the work will be done during the drawdown period. The property owner is in conversations with the abutting properties, but we're going to try to see and want the commission to be aware. It was made, I made a statement during the previous meeting, but it's our intent to access this area during the drawdown via the actual shoreline from Flat Hill Road down this area. This area is relatively sandy and rocky, so an additional layer of erosion control will be placed along the limit of the retaining wall system from the property to Flat Hill Road to allow for vehicles to traverse back here to bring back materials and to allow for the construction of the site.
Chris, what I'd like to do now is just go around and ask each member where they stand on this application, you know, as far as, you know, what it would take for them, you know, to conduct a vote and, or what they're looking for, what they think is missing. And so I was gonna start with Mr. Bursch.
Mr. Chair, overall, there's an existing wall there, so they certainly have the right to replace it. Looks like it's replaced in the same spot. With an engineer involved, we can ensure that the wall does not creep out into the lake bed. One thing, as Chris was talking about, accessing from Flat Hill Road along the waterfront, there's no erosion protection. in place for the drawdown to be working on that wall. And there should be erosion protection along the entire bank for the equipment to be running in.
I do not know where that layer must have been shut off. I apologize. Hold on one moment, please.
Anything else?
That would definitely be accomplished or accommodated. I apologize for that.
Yeah, nope, the erosion protection and the fact that it's gonna run along the entire shoreline,
absolutely.
where the equipment's gonna come in from. And just that we'll expect, for final approval, the second wall and the stairway designs for approval of those.
So, when you say final approval, before we vote on the application?
I myself, if we have the erosion protection, I'm fine with the wall along the lake edge. There's enough detail in here on what they were looking to do. Again, putting it back in place. And the floodplain remediation. But of course, that can't really be done until they're done with that second layer wall. So I'm fine with the lake wall. The second wall and the stairs would have to be approved when we get a little better plan of that. And the plantings 3 foot on center in erosion area 1.
And so, Chris, before I go on to other people, would you be willing to take in, I guess you'd have to resubmit for the, is that what you were thinking, Rich? They'd have to resubmit for the second wall and the stairs, or?
Well, myself, again, I feel comfortable with the first wall. The other two, we just hold off on approval of that until we get further information on it. That shouldn't, in my mind or opinion, affect the wall along the lake edge. I mean, they're not gonna be doing it until October, so.
Yep.
I don't think it's that big of a deal to try to get everything done now, but the design they had before us with a couple of the missing lines, I'm fine with.
Jack Rabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am also in favor of allowing the replacement of the wall. There was one there for sure. In my mind, it's a half natural stone boulders kind of thing, and the other one was old cinder blocks. And I'm a major advocate of a 45-degree slope with natural stone. The water action, it's broken up better. The wall, that will last a lot longer. It's also a habitat potential for all sorts of little smaller creatures. And I'm saying, you know what, you can get that done pretty quickly too. So I would be asking for basically the banking, some sort of natural stone. I am not in favor at this particular point of pulling out, what do you get, 6 oaks that I'm looking at. I'm saying certainly the two toward the top of the stairway. I would take you up on the option, Chris, to say, we'll come back and visit us, and I really would want to look at those other 2 oaks along the base wall and the other 2 in area treatment too. So other than that, it's fine. It's a tough one no matter what. And how are you going to get down there? How is he? I don't know how.
Flat Hill Road.
Flat Hill Road over and then drive it
along
the
shoreline.
Drive it along the shoreline. Yeah, that's fine. So I would. Those are my 2 concerns.
Thank you, Jack. Jeff Viviano.
No, I agree. The wall definitely needs to be replaced. It's in disrepair. It's that land area around it is eroding into the lake, which we need to shore up. So I have no issues with the wall. I do question probably about half the trees that you're looking to cut, but you did say that it'll be kind of an on-site determination whether those trees are going to be cut or not. If it were my house, I'd like the taller trees, because if you put smaller trees on that slope, guess where your view's gonna go in about 4 or 5 years? You're gonna be looking at trees, not a lake, whereas right now you have a pretty decent view. So just think about that. I don't have any issues with the stairs. It's very difficult to get down there right now. And just the other things that were brought up, I think, if that's addressed, then it's fine with me. That's about it.
For myself, I have no issue with the block wall along the shoreline where there's an existing concrete wall. You know, I would want all the same requirements that, you know, that Richard talked about.
Just for a moment, just for my own clarification and my clients. Are we tonight agreeing to the location of the upper wall? I do know that final design plans for the wall will have to be generated in order to construct the wall, and I think, and correct me if I'm interpreting this incorrectly, but I believe the commission is saying they don't want to approve that wall until they actually have that final design plan. But just as a, you know, a thought process, could that be made a condition of approval that prior to construction, we can provide that construction plan? I just don't want to slow up the process and then somewhere down the road, minds get changed and now we don't have a wall system. Am I understanding this correctly?
Richard, what are your thoughts on that? Conditioning the approval of the wall and the stairs before construction can begin, in granting the approval tonight?
I would not be in favor of that, no.
Well,
Just in looking at it, without really having it designed, Chris said they have to have a civil engineer design it. I mean, I'm looking just at this picture here between the shed and the tree that's staying. You know, we're gonna have a 3 or 4 foot wall in through here, all along here. I mean, I would, if they are requesting a civil engineer design this wall, I think we should wait to see the design of the wall.
And,
Myself.
and you need, Chris, on this particular night, you need 3 votes. I don't think you're gonna get it, you know, for approval with a condition. So I'm suggesting that we continue this and that you take and you develop the more detailed plans for the stairs and the wall, that you take and you bring us back something that specifies, you know, the planting in that erosion control area that Mr. Birch referred to, and that you know, show the erosion protection, you know, along this, in the, you know, in the lake bed, for, you know, when you're putting your equipment in the lake bed, and that we continue this. You know, what do you think you need for a timeline to develop more detailed plans for the stairs and the wall?
That would be tough to say. I'm sure the commission's aware. Everybody's busy.
I'm very aware everyone's busy, and that's why I'm asking you.
I know. I don't believe it would be ready by July 7th, so I would anticipate being the meeting after. And just for clarification, that retaining wall is below the threshold for an actual building permit. So when I mean it's going to be designed, it's going to be designed by the wall manufacturer based on their manufacturing requirements.
Well, but what I hear is you know, some members asking, you know, for the specs on that wall, and so I'm suggesting to you, you know, if you're looking for an approval, that you provide them to us, and I'm suggesting that to you that you approve our continuing this until July 21st.
I would be in favor of that at this point.
If there's any further discussion before I ask for a motion, Jeff?
Can Patty and Mike vote on this?
Mike might be able to because he's been here
He's been here.
as an associate.
Yeah.
Patty, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, you went on the sidewalk, didn't you, Mike?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, see, Mike's been on the sidewalk, Mike
Yeah, I
can
just
vote,
didn't know if it
Patty
had to be
can't.
as a member or.
Yeah,
And Katie's only missed one meeting, so she can fill out a Mullins form.
Yeah, okay, I'll just, okay.
you know, and so if we have a fuller commission, you know, you'll need 4 votes, you know, and if it was gonna be tonight, you'd need 3. So, but at any rate, I'm looking for a motion to continue until, July 21st.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Got some homework.
Chris,
Yes.
before you go, guys, Paul Gogan is here for certificate of compliance. He's been waiting. And Chris is actually wants to speak for him, but I know, Chris, did you have another meeting you have to go to, or? Can they speak to this now?
I have no objection taking it out of order. Mr. Gogan?
Good evening. Good evening.
Paul Gogan,
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul Gogan, 675 Reservoir Road.
Hey, Chris Harrison, Hannigan Engineering. So,
but before you start, Mr. Morrow, do you have a recommendation on this application?
Well, the question I have is, and this is what I want Chris to speak to, there was a replication area that was proposed, and it's not exactly a total bordering vegetated wetland. However, the engineering is showing that the amount of floodplain that we asked to be compensated of is a lot larger than what we had approved, which is good. So essentially, we've got just a different type of resource area on it. So I'd like Chris to speak to that. The other plantings and stuff, they look good. There were extra plantings that were missing that Paul planted last fall. They've all taken, everything looks good. I mean, planting areas they came out beautiful, so.
Mr. Anderson?
Yep, so essentially what we've done is we've compared the as-built versus the original existing conditions. And essentially, at the end of the day, we are providing a overall increase in the actual floodplain from the original submittal. Right now, as the site sits now, we're seeing an increase of 135 cubic feet of actual flood compensation on the property. So in excess of what's been altered. So as Matt had said, it's a general improvement over the overall property relative to what was done historically. So that's essentially it. Site's been built to spec, and the compensation area has been achieved.
And we have a letter from the engineer stating all of that?
Yeah, we've had that with photos in the file for a while. I just wanted to, there were plantings that were missing, and I wanted to make sure that that rain garden took hold, which it did. So we had time because of the pandemic, because his permit was told. So, you know, he could continue the work without having to refile anything. So Paul, you did a nice job. I mean,
Thank you.
Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners?
Just to verify, so you've been down on site, Matt, and?
Several times.
Okay, so the replication, the floodplain replication area that we saw together is now widened and planted, and okay.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any questions or comments from the public?
I just wanted Chris to speak to the floodplain because
Okay.
I had him noted on the plans, that's why, on the as-built.
Looking for a motion to approve this certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Paul. Sorry you had to wait so long. Now we got.
Thank you very much.
4 more public hearings.
Well, most of them are gonna wind up being, Cynthia Ritchie's gonna be continued.
Well, let's do it then. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and under Lunenburg Protective Bylaw, Chapter 335, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for a notice of intent by Cynthia Ritchie for work at 137 Flynn Road to build a natural stone wall along the waterfront to protect against future erosion of the edges of the land and beach. Do we have a request to continue? Matt?
Yes.
Make a motion to continue to July 7th? I'm sorry, yeah, July 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and under Lunenburg Protective Bylaw, Chapter 335, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for a notice of intent by Empire Management Corp. for work at 757 Chase Road for the demolition and reconstruction of a commercial building with grading and parking. We continuing that?
Nope, they're here.
Holy mackerel.
We survived.
And who are these people?
My name is Jim Almonte from Land Design Collaborative, registered landscape architect. And we also have Brian Lafferty from Empire Management here as well.
Okay, take it away.
And can you share your plans, please?
Sure.
So I know he had sent us some updated, I just want to make sure what he shares is what you got.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you see that?
I can.
Okay, great. So we were in front of the commission beginning of March. We had our first public hearing with the commission then. We continued a number of times because we were also in the process of getting permits with the planning board and the ZBA for a special permit. So we just closed with, we closed with the ZBA about a month or so ago. We did receive our permits through that board. We also met with the planning board on Monday. During that process, Graves Engineering did a thorough review of the site plans, the stormwater. We went back and forth a couple times with them. We responded to their comments and issued revised plans for the planning board. They were approved by the planning board. Graves was happy with our response and plan changes. So all of the plan changes were outside the 100 buffer zone, so it didn't affect anything that was filed with the Conservation Commission. But like I said, we did receive approval from the planning board on Monday. So we do have all our other approvals at this point, and we're looking to do that as well with Conservation. So that's kind of an update of where we've been since March. And if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, let's give them a minute or two to look over the plans.
I think the biggest thing I had was to make sure that the stormwater management was approved by the planning board, by the reviewing engineer.
We have a copy of the O&M plan, Matt?
Matt, do we have a copy of the O&M plan?
Yeah, I've got that. Let me see if I can find it here.
I thought I was gonna read Mike's palm there.
Trying to make the picture bigger, the plan bigger.
You have a long lifeline, Mike.
Yeah, I think I do.
Just lost it. helps at all.
Okay, in their stormwater report, if you go to page 65, it has their construction pollution prevention plan there. And then it has the stormwater management long-term O&M plan here. That's on the cloud. And that's all essentially within state and local stormwater.
And do we have a schedule for replanting and erosion protection on the slope? Sorry about that. Do you have the call out for the planting of the slope and the erosion protection on that slope to the north side?
Yep, that's actually shown on the detail sheet, sheet C401.
Right there.
Okay. And what are we planting on the slope? I see the erosion, I see the slope stabilization.
It would just be a seed mix. It's a 2-to-1 slope in most of that area.
Yeah.
So we typically don't plant trees or anything like that on
Yeah.
that type of slope, so it would just be a seed mix.
Okay. Do you have the spec on the seed mix?
I don't believe I do.
Okay.
Still in the base.
Yeah, it's not on the plan schedule, but we can certainly specify something for that.
Okay, like a state slope, or I don't imagine at that grade you're gonna be mowing it.
No, we don't plan on doing that.
Okay.
And I can add in the order on the stormwater management portion that the slope will be replanted with a slope mix.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Jack Rabbit.
Thank you, sir. We had, I possibly answered this for us many months ago, but we had a question with regard to your oil storage, and were you going to have some any kind of bulk storage? And the other question is, you're going to also be washing cars. Where is that drainage, and where is all that going to occur?
So we do have the back of the building is the service area. So we do have a holding tank for the floor drains located right here
Can you,
on the plans.
we're having a hard time seeing this distance. This
is the tank.
I can zoom up. I don't know if that's helping at all.
Holding tank for the floor drains, okay. And where are you going to be storing all your oil?
Brian, I'm not sure if you want to answer that. It's more of an operational question.
Typically, bulk oil is stored in a mezzanine in the service department in a double-wall tank.
So it's in the building.
It's inside the building, it's all totally contained
Correct.
within the building?
Yes. correct.
Okay. And your car washing, where are you going to do that, and where's it going to drain to?
That's also inside the building in a specified car wash bay, which is connected to the underground drains in the service department, runs to the oil and gas separator and the holding tanks.
Okay. I guess that's it for me.
Anything for you, Jeff?
No questions.
Any comments or questions from members of the public? I'm looking for a motion to approve this NOI. I don't know if you want to put a condition on the slope mix, or if we leave that to Matt.
Just a state slope mix is fine.
Yep. So, is that a motion, Richard?
Yes, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Sorry it took
Thank
so
you very
long.
much.
It's okay. Have a
Nothing
good
we
night.
can do about the 16 hearings, though.
Right. Thank you.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaw, public hearing on a notice of intent by Mass Pleasant LLC will be held. Work proposes construction of a 6-lot subdivision roadway, utilities, and a proposed wetland crossing at 101 Pleasant Street.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant requests a continuance. They're preparing final revised plans in color.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to continue to July 7th?
Yep.
Prior to that, can we request that we get some of the layers broken out? The wetland layer, the road layer? If I remember correctly, that was basically a bowl of spaghetti spilt on the floor plan.
I think it's changed quite a bit. They've drastically reduced the size of it from what I,
Yeah, he's done a lot of work on that plan.
so it's not nearly what they'd submitted.
He's done a lot of work on that plan.
So you're gonna ask them to break out the layers, so we not looking at so many things at once?
I'm actually typing him a note now.
All right. So do we have a motion to continue to July 7th?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination of applicability for work at 73 Peninsula Drive by Daniel Murphy will be held. Work proposed is the removal of tree within the buffer zone. Mr. Murphy, I'm so sorry you were last. Mr. Murphy, you're gonna have to have a different microphone or something. I couldn't understand a word you said.
Can you hear me now?
Can you guys understand them?
Good enough. What?
Okay, if the other people can understand you, it must be my hearing. Go ahead.
I resubmitted revised plans for the amount of trees. I sent them to Matt the other day, and I'm only looking for half of what.
Should be on the cloud. Actually, I think I got them from yesterday.
And so I'm gonna look and see if I can't share it on the screen.
Yes, sir.
It's 73 Peninsula.
Yeah, I received it
Revised June 15th, is that what I'm looking at? This
Yep,
thing?
That's it. There you go. Here's a hard copy.
Yes.
Should be on. Here's the hard copy. You don't want a hard copy?
No, I better, this is the revised one right here.
Okay, well, you guys with the hard copies can keep those. I've got a ton extra that I printed out.
Gonna share the screen for the people at home. Can you see that now, Mike?
Yes.
All right. And so, this pine is 30 feet from the lake. These two pines are 47 feet from the lake. This double pine is 60 feet from the lake, and this pine is 71 feet from the lake.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Were you guys recommending a replacement for the trees at the 30-foot line? I didn't go out on site.
The applicant said, if I'm correct, Mr. Murphy, you said you'd be happy to replace the trees?
Yes, sir.
There'd be one that you'd be replacing because it's within 30 feet of the lake.
That is fine.
Definitely a substantial difference from what was done originally.
Jack, are you done with your analysis down there? or-
We're just looking, and I'm still having questions with regard to the pine at 30 feet. Why do we need to remove that? I agree with the double pine, and then the problem, the pine that was right at 71 feet and right next to his house, that's it. Oh. Mr. Murphy, you want to start all over again? Did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Could you hear me before now? That's.
I'm sorry, no, I couldn't.
Okay, my concern is the pine at 30 feet, I'm not really clear why we need to remove that. I agree with the double pine at 71 feet, I think that's your call, the pine at 71 feet. And the two that are very close together, I'm just, pines get close together, and I'm not so sure about those either. And I know we had a hard.
Honestly, any of these pines that would come down would hit either my house or my neighbor's house.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to avoid a future situation, because where I live now,
Yeah.
I've had two of these pines come down in my yard from my neighbor's yard. Same size, same shape.
Yeah.
My neighbor has one that came down on their house, which they had to replace their roof. It's just, I don't mind trees, and I'm more than willing to plant some new ones. But these guys have gotten a little bigger than they should be for the safety of my property.
Mr.
I've just had some very bad experiences with pines coming down.
Yeah, the fact that you're willing to plant some more trees is good. I'm just, everybody has trees near their house, and they all conceivably could strike them. It's just that if we took out all the trees that 100-foot pines that are near their houses, we wouldn't have any trees around any houses. And so the question is, how old is the tree? From what I understand, they go 150 years, but then they're getting ragged. I'm just thinking that might be premature. I'm one member, but the 30 and the two close together, I wouldn't remove them. And clearly, that 60, the double 60 and the 71, that's up to you. But the ones within the 50, I wouldn't touch. That's Mr. Chairman.
I don't have a problem with anything he's proposing. I've looked at those trees several times. He's reduced it in scale from what he originally proposed. These are the trees that we went on site and said, yeah, these look reasonable. So I don't see why we're re-grasping at the straws here. That's just my opinion as your agent. And the trees can live as long as 150, but they normally outlive their useful lifespan around 60, 65 years, which these trees are. And some of these trees, especially the 131 feet, they're in a compromised state. So I don't have a problem with them, especially since he's so willing to replant, which is the big thing that we need to make sure that we observe in the 30-foot. The way the regulations are currently written, that we get some replanting on this. And he's indicated a willingness to do so. This is just my professional opinion. So, I mean, you guys obviously do what you want, but this is just me chiming in here.
My opinion is highly colored by the fact that within a mile of this house, we've had 3 white pines come down and split houses in half in the last 2 years. That is an important consideration for me. I would note all the trees except for that one pine that's at 30 feet are definitely out of the no disturbance zone. And I'd be a favor of cutting all these trees down, replacing the pine at 30 foot with 2 trees. Richard Birch.
I agree with you, Mr. Chair. As long as the one at 30 foot's replaced within the regulations.
Yeah.
And at this point, within 15 feet of the center of the tree being taken down.
Mr. Chairman, just as a note on our lake, the trees that came down were on the ones that were on the windward side, where essentially the wind was sweeping across the lake and took them all down. This is a kind of a protected area on the downside there. And so I've got less of a concern about it, but at the same time, you replace the 30-foot, get us some shade in that area, and I want the trees, but I think that it's unnecessary, but that's okay.
One coming down, two going back.
Jeff, you have any comments before I call for a motion?
No, I just reiterate what Matt said. We've been working on this for a while. We've done 2 site walks, and we kind of came to the agreement, these were the trees that were going to be cut at this point. So I think we need to move on. I think 2 trees in replacement is definitely acceptable to me.
Looking for a motion?
Make a motion for a negative determination for the removal of the trees on the revised plan, with the tree at the 30-foot mark being replaced per regulations with 2 trees.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Enforcement. Before we go into, that's what Mr. Bowen's been here waiting for. And I understand that, but the chairman needs to visit the little room, and I'll be right back.
Am I all done?
Yeah, you're all set, Mr. Murphy.
Hey, Matt, can I contact you with what kind of trees and who you want me to get to do the replacement?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, once I get set up for someone to take them down, I'll contact you. And how much time do I have before I replace the trees?
Just, you know what? Call my office tomorrow afternoon.
All right, sounds good.
All right, I think you have my cell phone number. Call that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Have
Yep.
a good night. Sorry it's been so long.
For the entertainment of the public out there, while we're doing intermission, I'm going to sing Christmas in July tunes. No, not really. I had to break it up somehow, though. Guys, while we're waiting, I have forms to be signed. I have, this was the determination that we issued for, this is for Tim Boschman, for the dock. This is the determination that we issued for,
Did he apply through the portal?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. This was a good example of those that should go through the portal, because that would have given the DPW a chance to take a look at the site.
Okay.
Without any parking on the side of the road, so.
Okay, well, probably should, I mean, I know we have portal regulations in our thing, but we might want to talk about filings that are mandatory through the portal, because they're not really right now, the way the regulations are written. A lot of people try it and they won't do it, but it's getting a lot more use now. We're working a lot of the bugs out of it, which has been real good, especially with the big projects. This is Mrs. Anderson over on Crescent, the determination we did for her. This one is the McGurn order of conditions, bylaw only. And these next 7 are Steve Powell's individual lots. I put the special conditions in there that the rain garden is to be maintained in perpetuity on each lot.
It will get, it's a separate line on the deed, it's a separate filing.
And you get our demarcation stones or whatever we end up with.
that was, my intent was that was a separate filing with the registry of deeds.
So you want a deed restriction?
I guess.
Okay, then
That's what it's called.
I'll add that second, I'll add 45.
Okay. Yeah, because that was the intent, was the order of conditions is listed in the title, but the perpetual condition of the rain garden maintenance is also listed on the deed as a separate.
Yeah, we'll do like a separate restriction with the O&M plan.
Yes, that's what it's supposed
It'll
to
be-
be.
and I'll write that in there.
That condition will always be there.
Okay.
When this gets signed off, if people don't go back and read it, then they don't see it. If it's there as a special condition on the deed, technically, when they do the title search, when the houses are sold, that should get called out as a restriction to the purchaser.
Right.
That was the intention.
Okay, while you guys are signing these things, well, let's talk about 23 Cove Road. Well, you're not last. We got a lot of other things to talk about, too.
Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna be reminding them that it's Thursday by the time we're done.
I hope not.
Sorry to jump. The demarcation mat is listed on here?
It should be. I'll double check it. I'll make sure it's listed.
Yeah, I don't see it as another condition, that's all, and that's usually where we put those.
Well, we have permanent demarcation built into our boiler that I should have highlighted, but I'll make sure it is.
Okay.
Talking stones or markers, I'm sorry.
He called it out on the plan.
Now, I thought we had to call it out because they weren't on the plan.
No, I believe he put it on the plan as a revision.
And we did specifically ask if they show in
Yeah, power lock.
Yeah, as a special condition, I'd feel better if they were listed as a special condition because we did call them out that way.
Okay, I can add it.
Okay.
Please do.
not sign them until we do.
Okay.
No, if you could sign them, please, so I could issue them. I'll send you the revised conditions to review before I let them go. But I would please like the signatures, so we don't have to hold them up with an unreasonable period. Because with the state of emergency being lifted, we now have our statutory deadlines to make sure that we meet. Absolutely.
We got a lawyer, I was gonna ask him.
Only if any.
Oh, we got paid for them.
And right now, during the time of night, his rates are reversed from electrical. They go up.
The meter is spinning. Good evening. Robert Bowen, representing Robert Coloni, the owner of 23 Cove Road. Let me just say at the outset that he wants to cooperate. He wants to fix anything he's done wrong. To that end, he has hired Oxbow as a consultant. They were just hired yesterday, so they're just getting up to speed with this. Before he undertook to do anything on the property, he did do some research. He didn't find any wetlands that were there, and so he did what he did. My understanding is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the maps that you're using to indicate the wetland go back to 1994. So we still have some legitimate questions about where the wetland is wetland, and what isn't the wetland. But leaving that all aside, and assuming for a moment that there's wetland there, what did he do and how do we fix it?
If I may?
You could start.
Okay. So the first thing he's done is he's done the right thing by hiring Oxbow. Under the regulations I cited to you in our email exchange,
Yep.
it's pretty clear that it's the responsibility of the owner to do his due diligence. His due diligence was incomplete because the maps that you access through a database aren't listed as being authoritative. And if you look at the actual regulation, there are only two maps that are listed as authoritative boundaries. One is the USGS maps for perennial streams. If it's a perennial stream, we have to assume that the stream is perennial. If it doesn't show on the map, we have to assume it's intermittent unless the property owner can prove otherwise, and there are steps in the law to take. When it comes to floodplain is mapped out by the FEMA flood maps. We can get more specific on the elevations through survey so we can see exactly where those exact boundaries are. But when it comes to wetland resource areas such as isolated wetlands, bordering vegetated wetlands, vernal pools, anything that's on somebody's property, they have the burden of proof to show that it's either a wetland or not. They have the burden of coming forward to the Conservation Commission under 310 CMR 10. He's done neither. He can research all the maps he wanted, but if he wanted to know for sure, all he had to do was call my office, and he hasn't done that. He never did it. I looked at all my logs, all my emails. I've never heard from him until we started having exchanges about a week ago. Now, with regard to your 1994 reference, if I just may be permitted for just a moment.
Yep.
He referred to a 1994 plan when the house was built, and I do believe that Commissioner Birch was on the commission back then when that was approved.
This was actually one of the first names.
And there actually, I have it in here in this mess of folders, there is a plan from the original house, which back then, before the E11 wound up changing some of the addresses, was known as 50 Cove Road, which is why I had an initially hard time locating it, but this is probably what he was referring to. This is the original plan here.
Yep.
From the looks of what I can see, just walking on site based on the scaling of this plan, he's altered this area right here, which is shown clearly as wetland on his plan. Now, that would have to be specified, and that's where Oxbow comes in.
Yeah, as I said, he's hired them, so
Yep.
he's,
And Brian's team on wetland remediation, coming back into compliance filings, they're awesome.
Good.
So he's done a great first step by hiring Brian's team to do that.
Good.
I've worked with him in many, as you could see tonight, I've worked with many venues for years. They should
Good.
do a good job.
Actually, there's a really good chance that Brian may have been our agent in 1994.
oh, interesting.
He was the agent prior to Matt Morrow being the agent.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he was here in 94, though. I think it was 97. But I'll ask him.
Yep.
But I don't see any of his comments in the file.
That may not have been.
No.
So, with that being said,
So, I drove by there about a week or two before this all started.
yep,
And I noticed that it appeared to me as though, first of all, there were some really large trees that had been cut down, and the stumps were still there at that time. And I haven't done it yet, but I would bet if I went to the aerial photographs and looked, that they would show, really large trees right there that aren't there anymore. And the stumps have been removed. And it appears to me, looking at that 94 plan, that he filled in actual wetlands. And that he built that shed greenhouse thing right on top of where it used to be wetlands. And so, that's what it appears to me has happened, but that's just a gestalt,
Sure,
initial
sure.
impression.
well, that,
And it could be wrong, but that's my initial impression.
That area has been yard since he built the house. So
That's an assertion.
True. So that's an assertion. The greenhouse structure is on it. If it's in the buffer zone, it's in the buffer zone.
I think it's in
This is the
wetlands.
first I'm hearing that you perceive it to be in the wetlands. Until now, I thought you perceived it to be in the buffer zone.
Well, we didn't realize that until we went out on site Saturday and looked at it. And we thought, there's a possibility it could be in wetlands. So we're
I
not-
don't
we're
know,
not
it's
gonna-
wetland, I think it's possible.
We think it's possible. We're not going to draw it conclusively.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to have Brian determine.
Yep. Just some other things to address. We don't know where you got the idea that there's a stone wall. There, I was out there, I didn't see one. I don't know what you're seeing as the stone wall.
Okay, well, I concede I saw something that looked like a stone wall, and I
There's a
don't know if
pine
we
tree
discussed
that-
it,
there's
but
a pine tree
There's a
that's
pine
down.
tree, there's a pine log, and, fine, we can just say that there's no
So
stone wall
there
there.
there might not be a stone wall. So we've got trees, we've got the greenhouse, we've got the wall that is or isn't there. Is there anything else?
Go ahead.
Thank you. The individual's also been taking rubbish and leaf matter and dumping it into that area. That would be something we'd like to see certainly removed.
Now, actually, the reverse is true. He had been dumping yard waste in the corner there, and Hickory Hills was complaining that that was contributing to the nitrates in the water.
Yeah.
So he removed that, but that was yard waste, and his position would be that he's been doing routine lawn maintenance.
Here, if you want to take a look.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I should come over to you, I'm sorry.
So that's still there?
Yeah, yes. And additionally, he'd recently had cut down a tree, and where can I see that? Looked to me like it was in the wetland. Let me get a better picture. You can see it right next to the snowmobile. Here you go, if you want to see. I'll try and get these old bones up off the ground here. Just look straight above the snowmobile. And he's also parking his equipment, it looks like in the wetland area.
Well, as I said, he's engaged Oxbow, so they will do an analysis. Where would this board like to take it from here?
My personal opinion is that we have Oxbow complete their analysis and file a notice of intent for the work that's on site.
Agreed.
I mean, that's pretty simple. You just basically file for retroactive permits. Oxbow does their analysis, they can make a determination on the filing and how to bring the property back into compliance, with a retroactive permit.
Yep.
And that basically resolves the issue. It's subject to a public hearing, much like we've been going on and on through all night. And commission gives its input, public gives its input, applicant, Brian gives his input, and they make a decision on a permit that everybody agrees to.
And what's your timetable?
That depends on you, or your client. It depends on how soon Oxbow can get material into me. Once they know my deadlines, they know usually when they file to get a hearing, it could be like as simple as a 2-week turnaround time once they give me the paperwork. But how fast they generate the report and the paperwork is based on them and your client's dynamics.
And I understand that, so from our perspective, we'll work out that schedule with Oxbow. From an enforcement perspective, how long is this board willing to wait?
Mr. Chair, through you, Matt, do you think 60 days to have an application submitted?
First meeting in September, I think would be reasonable.
Okay.
Because right now it's the end of June, so you're talking July and August, so first meeting in September.
Okay.
So just after Labor Day.
Okay, so have a application submitted.
By the September 1st meeting.
Yeah, so 60 days from now would be the time frame for the September 1st meeting. I would be okay with that.
It's a small enough area, Brian can send his team out to do an analysis pretty quickly.
How did you guys know that the first meeting in September was the first? I'm impressed.
I don't even want to go there. I'm still trying to figure out if dirt bag is one or two words.
You think that will be suitable to your client?
I don't know. We'll talk to Oxbow, we'll
Yep.
make sure that's okay.
You know, if Oxbow, you know, if you, when you're talking to Oxbow, you find out that timeline isn't gonna work, come back and talk with us.
Yep.
Yeah, just have Brian give me a shout.
Okay.
And then I'll pass it by Bob and let him know what's going on. And we just bring it up at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I think it would be appropriate too, because it'll give him a chance to get his vegetables in, out of his flower bed, out of his garden, raised gardens there. And he's doing a nice job in terms of, you know, the bird houses and everything else. It's aesthetically pleasing, it's just in the wrong place, you know? And don't throw the trash in there.
I mean, honestly, you know, there are a lot of good consulting firms out there. They're all excellent, but, you know, the fact that he hired like Brian and his crew just increased my comfort factor 100%.
Good. We've accomplished something tonight then.
Yes.
Anything else?
No?
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, apologies for having to wait so long. Unfortunately, with the dynamics of the public hearing, I didn't have much of a choice.
I understand.
Let's take us through the rest of these violations and enforcement. Matt?
Believe it or not, I'm gonna be brief. Okay, the illegal dumping activity, we've already talked to Heather about filing an NOI. 615 Townsend Street, he's done a good job cleaning it up according to my timeline. I'm just watching to see how fast it grows in. 467 Lancaster Ave has not reoffended. I'm just gonna monitor it to make sure it stays grown in.
Yeah.
Fire Road 16, I'll talk to Doug Vigneault this coming week and find out what the scoop is on Fire Road 16 with their cleanup. I know we actually got another notice of intent for that street, so we're all gonna go back out there for site walks anyway. 48 Oak Ridge, I went and researched based on input I received at the last meeting, or the meeting, maybe it was the meeting before, about the patio, because there was an assertion, I know that there was an assertion made about whether it was pervious or impervious. Essentially what I found was the applicant asserted it was a pervious paved patio, and the commission wasn't totally convinced. So there were two proposals, and it was Commissioner Dwyer that proposed taking one of the decks off to leave the area as grass to make up for the area that was done with the expanded patio. The other assertion was made that the patio, since we've approved it, has increased in size. It is not. The patio that's there now was increased in size when it was built. So when you looked at the actual plans on file, what's out there now is what we approved, but it was bigger than what originally was there.
Is this the location where they had like the cantilevered porch sticking out of the house, and that was originally part of the complaint? It's on Lake
No.
No.
No, that was a different property.
Okay, never mind.
So anyway, what we've got now is what they did was they put the pergola within the confines of the actual patio. And then they would put a cloth covering on it because the wife and her mother are basically susceptible to skin cancer. They get it from too much sun. So it was made for shade. The lake would keep blowing that off, and then they put that plastic top on. So I'm working with them to file a retroactive RDA on that, but I don't know if you guys want to walk the site to take a look at actually what is out there, because I can send you pictures.
Yeah, I want to go and take a look at it.
Just for clarification, I had a chance to read, for the point of clarification, I did have a chance to read Carl's input to us, and I believe he was saying that the originally was approved was in fact that it was going to be a pervious.
No, that I understand what Carl is saying. The debate Carl and I had before he left the board was that he was asserting it grew. It hasn't grown.
Yeah,
it's still the same size. The applicant asserted it was a pervious paver. The way I read the record, I don't think the commission bought that explanation totally. So let's walk the site. I'll bring the record with me. We can review the record
Take
together.
a look at it. Yeah, and then the expansion, from what I understand, it's a plastic, some sort of a plastic covering over the pergola.
That's not an expansion, it's within the confines of the,
Yeah, and I don't know if we'd ever approved the roof, but.
no, we
I-
didn't.
Yeah. And I know that we in the past, where people have come forward with concerns with regard to exposure to the sun because of even existing conditions, we've recommended them that they put some sort of a tent or something over it and hopefully it doesn't blow down. So that.
Well, that's what they had done, and it just kept blowing away.
Yeah, and now they're asking for a full one and we're kind of exposed, so to speak.
Let's do the sidewalk.
Plan
I
work,
agree.
and take it from there.
I agree.
Okay?
So-
Arbor Street is the horse manure?
Yeah, I've asked DEP for an answer, and I'm still not getting an answer from them, but, you know, I asked them for help on certain questions on mapping, and I still don't get responses, so.
Okay.
They're just busy.
37 Pearl?
37 Pearl Street. I went and reviewed that area with the gentleman. He is filing a request for determination for replacing an existing walkway. I just haven't gotten his paperwork yet, so
Okay.
he's got until the end of the month. 2 Brookview, we just had the RDA for that, that's continued. It's actually 4 Brookview I wrote to. 23 Cove was just here. Paul Gauguin, we just did. 54 Pine Acres, I haven't had the chance to get out there and just snap photographs.
Okay.
I actually don't have a problem with anything she's doing out there. It's just like about 4 trees. And they're all along different parts of the pathway, and they're all dead anyway.
Under the update on the trails grant, I have to take and submit for reimbursement for the money that's been spent so far on trail markers and on GIS work, otherwise it'll go against the town's free cash. Under committee reports, last night, we had, the Open Space Committee met, and we had about 30 very angry, people from Lake Shirley come, because they, had watched or read the minutes or something, and they thought that the Open Space Committee was proposing to put a state boat ramp in on Stump Cove. Which is not the case. We explained to them that, first of all, the Open Space Committee doesn't have the authority to do anything. All we do is make recommendations. And what we're recommending is, what we think we're gonna recommend is that the town and the Parks Commission look into the possibility of putting in improving the access there for canoes and kayaks. I mean, right now, people are putting in canoes and kayaks there. To do that, they have to tromp through the vegetation, in the mud to get in there. And so the thought was, we could put a dock out so people walk on the dock rather than through the vegetation, and then put one of those little nifty kayak launching docks like Betty has. And put her in a small parking lot. But that is way far down the line, because right now the title to the property is very unclear. And so that would have to be clarified, and so it would have to go to the Board of Selectmen. Would they be willing to spend the money to clear up the title? And then would have to go to a town meeting. Do they want to transfer the property to the care and control of the Parks Commission? And does the Parks Commission want to take this on? And then it would have to go, there's some division of DCR or something like that, that takes, and they would come in and they would fund the whole thing. But we heard loud and clear that they're very concerned about the possibility of a boat ramp there. And we assured them that we heard them, and we'd be very cautious about that.
You heard them that they were
very
interested or
no, they are very opposed. They're very opposed to, in fact, their initial posture is they didn't want any access to Lake Shirley. And we said.
Well, there was a lot of stories going around, because they came to see me, some of them came to see me. And a lot of the concern was that they were told, one person in the neighborhood going around spreading a rumor that, the town was going to build this big complex with a big paved state boat ramp, and that we were going to dredge out Stump Pond, like dredge it out and make it deep so that boats could get in there. And I had to assure them that, the chances of this commission allowing a dredging project that massive on Stump Cove is about the same chance as me winning Miss America. And obviously, I'm not a very, as you can see on camera, I'm not a very pretty guy, so.
There was also a petition circulating with some markups and things like that. Someone asked me as well. I don't know anything about it, I've never seen it, never
Yeah,
heard
but
anything.
that's what that was about, and that's what happened last
Yeah.
night at Open Space.
Yeah.
So our normally 1 hour open space meeting went 2.5 hours. And it felt a little like that fateful night all over again. I get there and I couldn't even get in the parking lot at the Ritter because there were so many people from Lake Shirley there.
Well, at least they made their feelings known before anybody went deep into anything, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. So, any communications or public comment?
Oh, I do, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, Pollinator Garden, June 26th at 10 a.m. tours.
Oh,
Ken sent me a lot of money to do that. Oh, Joe, don't holler.
Why did he shut it off, Jack?
I shut it off because I only got hollered at again by Joe. Okay, June 26th, Pollinator Garden, 10 a.m. They're having tours, and honestly, what they're doing up there is just simply amazing. It really is. A nice cohort of people, and it's the right way to do it. And folks go see it and then copy it. That's what Jane did. Just copied it. Thank you.
Any other public comment or I'm looking for a motion to, any other business to come before this commission? I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Oh, and for the record, on the Zoom screen, that cute little girl that's on there is my granddaughter. And
Wait, I'm sorry. I want to talk about one other thing. Future meetings. Future meetings. It's like, this was an experiment.
Yeah.
We can go back to Zoom.
For another year.
For another year. We can go back to Zoom till next April 1st. Or we could, someone suggested to me that we take and we do the second meeting of the month here in person.
And do a hybrid.
Like this, and do the first meeting of the month Zoom, so that, we're not.
You don't have to worry about crowds at the Ritter Building or anything like that, especially with some of the controversial issues we have going on.
And so I'm just looking for your guys' feeling about, how you'd like to see meetings go in the future.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to first of all say, that screen's too far away for me to see. I can
So bring your computer next.
Bring your laptop and sign into Zoom without the audio.
Sorry.
I gotta learn how to hit a button. And the other side of it, I will, but even hearing from this distance is enough noise, and maybe I should just go get a pair of hearing aids too, I don't know.
What do you say?
So, I just think that this room could use some help, and it would be, keep a screen there, but put one here, so at least we can see the drawings.
I can understand your feelings on the hearing. I have a hearing loss from too many years of playing loud guitars and rock bands when I was in my 20s and standing on the wrong side of the speaker. So, yeah, sometimes it can be.
But let's get back to, how you like to see future meetings go.
I'm a fan of the Zoom meetings myself.
I am a fan of Zoom meetings also, but Richard?
I'm a fan of in-person.
You're a fan of in-person?
I am, unfortunately.
So what do you think of the idea of doing the hybrid?
But I also have to be careful because I leave on the 28th for Alaska, so I'm going to be Zooming it for the next 3 or 4 months.
What do you think about doing the hybrid? You do the hybrid meeting here and then the Zoom meeting for the first meeting that we would normally go. The thing is too, that way it gets video recorded and we can broadcast it, whereas if we did in person over there, it would only be audio.
I do think the back and forth works a little bit better in person. It became very apparent to me at the last selectmen's meeting when they had the appointments, because I happened to be on a landline phone, so I couldn't put my name in, and did have a comment and was not allowed to make a comment at the appointment period, so. There are problems with the Zoom meeting, and like I say, I do think that there's much better back and forth between members and with the public in person.
My personal preference is to go with the suggestion I received, about alternating, so that all meetings would be Zoom. All meetings you could Zoom in, but, we'd have an in-person presence, for the first meeting, for the second meeting of the month.
I will say that this as a trial worked very well. You could have people that come in person, we do have people on Zoom. I do think we just need to get a little bit down as far as...
Let's ask Mike what he thinks. Mike, what do you think?
Where's Mike?
I'm sort of open to either or. I didn't realize until I was in my Zoom that it was actually an on-site. So I should have read my agenda a little more carefully, but I was late. I was on the road, so I really could not have gotten to where you all are.
The nice thing about Zoom is I've actually participated in meetings while I was in my car.
I see you're all working from laptops. Do I need to acquire something like that in order to?
Do you have a iPad or something like that?
Yes, I have an iPad.
Yeah. Well, that'll do.
Just put the cloud on it.
Great.
Well, thank you, and we are adjourned, so goodbye.
So, the next meeting, what do you want to do?
Next meeting will be Zoom.
I love it, okay.
July
I'm
7th.
sitting next to Jeff, Rich not so much.
I didn't pick on you once, Jack. And if it wasn't, nobody would have heard you.
Oh,